I slid my resume across the glossy conference table. The paper was thin because our home printer was running on fumes, and I couldn't afford fancy cardstock. Victor Klein, the CEO, picked it up between two fingers like it was something dirty. He held it up to the light and actually laughed out loud. "Is this printer paper from 1995? He asked the room. Nobody answered, but a few people smirked. My stomach twisted into knots. He started reading my work history out loud like he was performing a comedy routine. When he got to my education section, he paused and looked at my left hand. My wedding ring caught the light. "So let me get this straight," Victor said, leaning back in his leather chair. "You're married. You're applying for a senior management position. And this," he waved my resume like a flag, "this is what you bring. This looks like a grocery store coupon." The room got so quiet, I could hear the air conditioning hum. I felt my wife Brooke shift in the chair next to me. I waited for her to say something, to defend me, to tell Victor he was being cruel for no reason. She said nothing. Victor tossed my resume back across the table. It slid and stopped right in front of me, face down like it was ashamed of itself. "Here's some free advice," Victor said, standing up and buttoning his suit jacket. "Next time you apply for a grown-up job, bring a real resume. And maybe bring a backbone while you're at it." My face burned. My hands felt cold. I wanted to say something smart, something that would shut him up, but my mouth wouldn't work right. The meeting ended 30 seconds later. Victor shook hands with everyone except me. When he walked past my chair, he didn't even look down. In the hallway, I could barely breathe. Brooke walked 3 steps ahead of me toward the elevator. She pressed the button hard, like she was angry at the wall. When the elevator doors closed and we were alone, I finally found my voice. "That was..." "Don't," Brooke snapped. Her eyes stayed locked on the glowing numbers above the door. "He embarrassed me in front of..." "You embarrassed yourself," she said. Her voice was sharp and cold. "And you embarrassed me." The elevator dinged. We stepped out into the parking garage. Brooke walked faster, her heels clicking against the concrete like a countdown. I caught up to her at the car. "Brooke, I don't understand. I didn't do anything wrong. He was the one who..." She spun around and her face looked different, harder. "Why did you embarrass me like that?" she asked. "I didn't." "My mom was right about you." The sentence hit me like cold water. My mom was right about you. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. I stood there in the parking garage, holding my briefcase with my cheap resume inside, and felt something crack open in my chest. Not my heart breaking, something deeper than that. Something that couldn't be fixed with an apology or a nicer printer. Brooke unlocked the car and got in. I walked around to the passenger side slowly, like I was moving through water. Her phone lit up on the center console before I could close the door. I saw the message preview clearly. "Good. Push him harder." "Mom, my name is Caleb Ward. I'm 47 years old, and until that moment in the parking garage, I thought I understood my own life. I'd spent 20 years building a steady, honest career in operations management. Nothing flashy, nothing that made headlines. But I showed up, did good work, and earned respect from the people who mattered. Or so I thought. That room with Victor Klein made me feel like a stray dog begging for table scraps. And the worst part wasn't the humiliation, it was Brooke's silence. We drove home without speaking. I kept replaying the meeting in my head, trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. My resume had all the right information. My experience was solid. I'd prepared answers to common interview questions. But none of that mattered, next to Victor's laughter. When we pulled into our driveway, Brooke grabbed her purse and got out fast. She didn't wait for me. By the time I made it through the front door, she was already upstairs. I stood in our kitchen and stared at the table. We'd eaten breakfast there that morning. Brooke had wished me good luck. She'd straightened my tie and told me I looked professional. Now she couldn't even look at me. My phone buzzed. A text from my old college friend asking how the interview went. I stared at the message for a full minute before typing back. Not great. That felt like the understatement of the year. I made coffee I didn't want and sat down at the kitchen table. Through the ceiling, I could hear Brooke on the phone. Her voice was muffled, but I caught a few words. Disaster. Embarrassing. I don't know. 20 minutes later, her car pulled out of the driveway. She didn't tell me where she was going. I sat there with my cold coffee and thought about Victor's face when he'd read my resume out loud. The way he'd smiled. The way the whole room had looked at me like I was a joke they'd all gotten except me. Then I thought about Brooke's text from her mom. Good. Push him harder. What did that mean? Push him harder toward what? Away from what? I pulled out my phone and opened our text thread. The last message I'd sent her was from that morning. Love you. See you after the interview. She'd responded with a heart emoji. That felt like a lifetime ago. When Brooke came home 3 hours later, she wasn't alone. I heard 2 car doors slam. Through the kitchen window, I watched Brooke and her mother Sharon walk up the driveway together. Sharon was carrying a casserole dish. That's when I knew something was really wrong. Sharon only brought food when she wanted an excuse to stay for hours. When she wanted to talk. When she wanted to dig into something and not let go until she'd pulled it apart piece by piece. I stood up from the table just as they walked in. Caleb, Sharon said, smiling that smile that never reached her eyes. I heard about today. I thought you might need a home-cooked meal. She set the casserole on the counter like she owned the place. Brooke wouldn't look at me. She busied herself getting plates from the cabinet, moving around the kitchen like I wasn't even there. Sit down, Caleb, Sharon said. It sounded like a suggestion, but it wasn't. I sat. Sharon took the chair across from me. Brooke sat beside her mother, and Seth, not beside me. So, Sharon said, folding her hands on the table, let's talk about what happened today. Sharon didn't ask questions. She made statements disguised as questions. That was her specialty. I heard the interview didn't go well, she said, cutting into the casserole she'd brought. Brooke told me everything. I glanced at Brooke, but she was staring at her plate. It wasn't really about me, I started. The CEO was. The CEO was evaluating you, Sharon interrupted, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. And apparently you didn't meet the standard. He mocked my resume before I even spoke, I said. He held it up and laughed at it in front of the whole room. Sharon nodded slowly, like she was considering this. Then she smiled. And what kind of paper did you use, Caleb? The question felt like a trap. Regular printer paper. Our printer at home. Exactly, Sharon said, setting down her fork. Regular paper. For a senior management position at a major company. Did you think that would impress anyone? It's the content that matters, I said. My experience, my presentation matters, Sharon said firmly. First impressions matter. You know this, Caleb. You're not a child. Brooke finally spoke. Mom's right. Everyone knows you need to print a professional resume on good paper. It's basic. I looked at my wife, searching for the woman I'd married. The woman who used to take my side. The woman who used to believe in me. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I'll do better next time, I said quietly. Will you? Sharon asked. She leaned forward, her expression shifting from sweet to surgical. Because Caleb, here's what I'm worried about. Brooke tells me you've been struggling. Interviews aren't going well. You're not moving up like you should be. And now this. This was one bad interview, I said. Was it? Sharon tilted her head. Or is this part of a pattern? The word pattern hung in the air like smoke. Mom, Brooke said softly, but Sharon held up one hand. Let me finish, sweetheart. Caleb, I'm going to be honest with you because somebody needs to be. If you can't even print a proper resume, how are you going to provide for my daughter? How are you going to give her the life she deserves? My jaw tightened. I've provided for 20 years. Have you? Sharon asked. She gestured around our modest kitchen. This house is nice, but it's not what Brooke could have had. It's not what she should have. Sharon, that's not fair. Life isn't fair, Caleb, that's the point. She picked up her fork again, calm as ever. You're a good man. Nobody's saying you're not. But good isn't enough anymore. Brooke needs someone who can rise to the occasion. Someone who commands respect, not someone who gets laughed at in interview rooms. The words landed like punches. Brooke touched her mother's arm. Maybe we should. No, I said. Both women looked at me. Say what you came to say, Sharon. Sharon smiled, and this time it looked almost genuine. Almost. All right, she said. Here it is. You're replaceable, Caleb. In the job market, in this economy, in life, you're replaceable. And if you don't step up, someone else will. Someone better. Someone who knows how to print a resume. She said it so calmly, like she was commenting on the weather. Don't forget that, she added, taking another bite of casserole. I stood up from the table. My chair scraped against the floor, loud in the terrible silence. "I'm going for a walk," I said. Neither of them tried to stop me. I walked for 2 hours that night, circling our neighborhood until my feet hurt. When I came home, Sharon's car was gone, but the casserole dish sat on the counter, half empty. Brooke was already in bed with the lights off. I slept on the couch. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing. An email notification lit up the screen. From HR@corporate.com, subject position status update. My hands felt cold as I opened it. "Dear Caleb Ward, we regret to inform you that your current position has been eliminated due to organizational restructuring. This decision was made by executive leadership after careful consideration of operational needs. Your last day will be 2 weeks from today. Please contact HR to discuss your exit package and benefits continuation. Sincerely, Human Resources Department." I read it 3 times. Position eliminated, organizational restructuring, executive leadership. I'd been at this company for 8 years. I'd seen layoffs before. They always came with warnings, rumors, meetings where management looked nervous. There had been none of that. This felt prepared, like someone had written it in advance and just waited for the right moment to hit send. I called HR immediately. A woman named Patricia answered. Her voice sounded rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. "Yes, Mr. Ward, this decision came from executive leadership. It's part of a broader restructuring initiative." "What initiative?" I asked. "Nobody mentioned restructuring. There were no meetings." "No, I understand this is difficult," Patricia said, her tone flat. "But these decisions are made at the highest levels. I can schedule an exit interview if you'd like to discuss." "Who approved this?" I interrupted. Patricia hesitated. "I'm not authorized to share specific names, but someone signed off on it. Someone made this decision." Another pause. "The documentation came through standard channels. If you'd like to review your severance package, I want to know who eliminated my position." "Mr. Ward, I really can't." "Then transfer me to someone who can." The line went quiet. I thought she'd hung up. Then she said, very carefully, "The approval signature belongs to the assistant of Victor Klein." My stomach dropped. Victor Klein. The CEO who'd mocked my resume yesterday. The man who'd told me to bring a backbone next time. "Thank you," I said quietly, and hung up. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe Victor's assistant handled lots of approvals. Maybe I was reading too much into this. But my gut told me different. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Brooke came down, already dressed, her purse over her shoulder. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was neutral, careful. "I got laid off," I said. She stopped halfway to the kitchen. "What?" "Email this morning. My position's been eliminated." I waited for shock, concern, the normal reactions a wife has when her husband loses his job. Instead, Brooke's face did something strange. It didn't fall, it shifted, like she was rearranging her expression into the right shape. "Oh no," she said. "That's when?" 2 weeks. "Wow," she set her purse on the counter. "Did they say why?" "Restructuring." "Well," Brooke said slowly, "maybe it's for the best. Maybe this is a sign you need to find something better." "Better?" I repeated. "I mean, you weren't happy there anyway." "I never said that. You didn't have to say it, Caleb. It was obvious." She poured herself coffee. "Maybe this is an opportunity." An opportunity. Like losing my job was a gift I should be grateful for. "Brooke, this is serious. We have a mortgage, bills. We'll figure it out," she said, but her tone suggested she'd already figured something out without me. She checked her phone, frowned, then typed something quickly. "I have to go," she said. "I have errands." "On a Wednesday morning?" "Yes, Caleb, errands." She grabbed her purse. "We'll talk tonight." She walked out before I could respond. I sat alone in our house, unemployed, with the email still glowing on my phone screen. Something felt wrong about all of this. The timing. Brooke's reaction. The signature on the layoff approval. When I went upstairs to shower, I passed our bedroom. The door was half open. On the bed, I saw Brooke's suitcase. Open, half packed with clothes folded neatly inside. She hadn't been running errands that morning. She'd been preparing to leave. Brooke came home that evening with her mother and a manila folder. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop, searching job listings, when I heard both car doors slam. Through the window, I watched them walk up together. Brooke, carrying the folder like it weighed 10 pounds. Sharon walking beside her with the posture of a general entering battle. They came in without knocking, which was strange because Sharon always knocked. She said it was polite. But today, politeness wasn't on the agenda. "Caleb," Sharon said, "we need to talk." "About what?" I asked, but I already knew. The folder, the suitcase upstairs. The way Brooke wouldn't look at me. Brooke set the folder on the table and slid it toward me. The movement was too familiar. It reminded me of Victor sliding my resume back across that glossy conference table, like it was something distasteful he didn't want to touch. "What is this?" I asked. "Open it," Sharon said. She sat down across from me, calm as a surgeon preparing to operate. I opened the folder. Separation agreement. The words were printed in bold at the top of the first page. My hands went numb. "Brooke." I looked at my wife. She was standing behind her mother's chair, arms crossed, staring at the wall behind my head. "This isn't working," Brooke said quietly. "We both know it." "We both know it," I repeated. "I didn't know anything. You didn't say." "I'm saying it now." Her voice cracked slightly, but Sharon reached back and squeezed her hand. Brooke straightened. "I want a separation. A clean one." "Clean," I said. The word tasted bitter. "It's better this way," Sharon added. "For both of you. You're clearly spiraling, Caleb. The job loss, the interview disaster, the instability. It's not healthy for Brooke to be around this." "I lost my job yesterday," I said. "1 day ago, and you're calling me unstable?" "It's not just the job," Brooke said. "It's everything. You're not who I thought you were. You're not enough." Not enough. The same phrase Sharon had used last night, just rearranged. I looked down at the separation papers. They were detailed: property division, financial arrangements, timelines. This wasn't something they drafted this afternoon. This had been prepared, planned, maybe for weeks. "When did you decide this?" I asked. Brooke didn't answer. "When, Brooke?" "Does it matter?" Sharon asked. "What matters is moving forward cleanly. No drama, no fighting, just acceptance." "You want me to just accept this?" "Yes," Sharon said simply. "Because fighting it won't change anything. It'll only make everything harder." I felt like I was drowning. 20 years of marriage, 2 decades of building a life together, reduced to papers and a folder and a conversation where my wife couldn't even look at me. "I need time to think," I said. "You have until Friday," Sharon said. "Friday, that's 2 days. 2 days is plenty of time to make a rational decision." Sharon stood up. "And Caleb, one more thing." She reached into her purse and pulled out another document. She set it on top of the separation agreement. "We're keeping the house," she said. I stared at the paper. It was a property transfer document. "This is my house," I said. "I bought it. I've paid the mortgage for—" "It's in both names," Sharon interrupted. "And Brooke needs stability right now. You understand?" "No," I said. "I don't understand. I don't understand any of this." Sharon smiled, that terrible smile. "You will." They left together. Brooke didn't say goodbye. She just walked out, leaving the folder on the table like a grenade with the pin pulled. I sat there until the room got dark, staring at those papers, trying to understand how my life had collapsed in 48 hours. The separation agreement had a signature line at the bottom. Blank, waiting for my name. I didn't sign it that night, but I knew they'd be back, and next time they wouldn't ask so nicely. Friday came faster than I wanted. I spent those 2 days in a fog, trying to understand what was happening and how to stop it. I called Brooke 16 times. She answered once, said I can't talk right now, and hung up. I texted her. She left me on read. I tried to focus on job applications, but every time I opened my laptop, I ended up staring at those separation papers instead. The language was cold and legal. It divided our entire life into bullet points and clauses. The house issue bothered me most. I'd made the down payment, I'd paid most of the mortgage. But Brooke's name was on the deed because that's what married couples do. They share things. Now that sharing felt like the biggest mistake I'd ever made. On Friday afternoon, they came back. This time, Brooke had a different look on her face. Determination mixed with something that looked like guilt. Sharon had no guilt at all. "Have you thought about it?" Sharon asked, sitting down without being invited. "Yes," I said. "And?" "I want to talk to Brooke, alone." Sharon laughed. Actually laughed. "That's not happening, Caleb. Brooke asked me to be here for support." "I'm her husband," I said. "Was her husband. Am her husband." The verb tenses were getting confused in my head. "I deserve a private conversation." You deserve what Brooke decides you deserve, Sharon said coldly. Now have you signed the papers or not? No. Brooke's face tightened. Caleb, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder? I stood up. You're taking my house, ending our marriage, and I'm the one making it hard? It's just temporary, Brooke said quickly. The house thing, just until we both get settled. Once you find a new job and get your own place. You'll what? Give me back the house I paid for? She didn't answer. Sharon did. Men like you always land somewhere, Caleb. You'll be fine. Men like you. The phrase made my skin crawl. What does that mean? I asked. It means you're resilient. You'll bounce back. You always do. Sharon stood up, smoothing her skirt. But Brooke needs security now, stability, things you can't provide right now. Because I lost my job, a job I had for 8 years until... I stopped myself. Until what? Sharon asked, her eyes sharp. I almost said it, almost told them about Victor Klein's assistant signing the layoff approval, about the timing being too perfect. But something in Sharon's expression warned me to keep quiet. Nothing, I said. Brooke pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. Caleb, I need you to see something. It was our joint bank account. The balance showed $47. What happened to our savings? I asked. I moved it, Brooke said. To a separate account. For safety. Safety from what? From me. From instability, Sharon interjected. You're unemployed now, Caleb. If you start making poor financial decisions, someone needs to protect the assets. My mouth went dry. You drained our account. I secured the funds, Brooke corrected. It's still our money. I'm just managing it until things stabilize. Things stabilize. Until I sign the papers, she meant. When did you do this? I asked. Yesterday. Yesterday. While I was out dropping off resumes at 3 different companies, trying to find a new job, trying to save us, Brooke was at the bank, taking everything we'd saved together. My phone buzzed, a notification from my banking app. Alert, joint account balance low. The app was a day late. This is theft, I said quietly. It's not theft, Sharon said firmly. It's financial planning. If you'd sign the papers, we could work out a fair division. But since you're being stubborn... I'm being stubborn? You're stealing from me and calling it planning. Lower your voice, Sharon said. Her tone wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like ice. Getting emotional won't help anyone. Brooke looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Pity. Not love, not regret, just pity, like I was a wounded animal she had to put down humanely. I already told my lawyer you've been unstable, she said softly. The room tilted. What? I had to, Brooke said. In case you tried to fight this, in case you tried to make things difficult, I needed documentation. Documentation. They'd been building a case against me. Evidence. Stories. A narrative where I was the problem, the unstable one, the man who couldn't keep a job or a marriage together, and I'd walked right into it. Sharon picked up the folder with the unsigned papers. You have until Monday, she said. After that, things get complicated for you. They left me standing in the kitchen of my own house, the house I was apparently about to lose, with $47 in my account and a wife who'd already rewritten our entire history to cast me as the villain. I didn't yell. I didn't break things. I didn't do anything they could later use as proof of instability. I sat down at the table and breathed until I could think clearly again. Then I did the only thing I could do legally. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Documentation doesn't sound powerful. It sounds boring. It sounds like something accountants do. But documentation is how you fight back when the people attacking you are using words and lies instead of fists. You can't punch back at words, but you can prove them wrong with facts. I started with the bank account. I logged into our joint account and took screenshots of every transaction for the past 6 months. I saved them in 3 different places: my laptop, a flash drive, and cloud storage. Then I looked at the withdrawal Brooke made. $42,000, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Yesterday at 2:17 p.m. I pulled up my phone records. Yesterday at 2:17 p.m. I was at a job interview across town. Brooke knew I'd be gone. She'd planned it. I saved the phone records too. Next, I went through my emails. I found the layoff notice and saved it. Then, I did something that felt paranoid but turned out to be smart. I requested my full employment file from HR. They had to give it to me by law. It arrived in my inbox 3 hours later. I read every page. Most of it was boring. Performance reviews, payroll records, standard forms. But tucked into page 47, I found something that made my hands stop shaking and start working faster. A memo dated 3 weeks ago. Candidate replacement approved pending position elimination. 3 weeks ago, before the interview with Victor, before the layoff, before Brooke filed separation papers. Someone had planned to eliminate my position before I even walked into that conference room. And the memo had an attached document, recommended replacement candidate. I clicked it open. The file was password protected. I sat back, staring at my screen. Why would a candidate recommendation be locked? Internal hiring documents were usually open for HR review, unless someone didn't want HR to see it easily. I tried a few common passwords. Nothing worked. Then I remembered something from my years in operations. Most people use the same password for multiple things. Simple, easy to remember. I tried Victor Klein's company motto, precision first. The file opened. Inside was a single page, a name, a resume, and a recommendation note. The name was Landon Mercer. I didn't recognize him. But the recommendation note made my blood run cold. Candidate comes highly recommended through family connection to existing operations. Staff, reliable, loyal, familiar with company culture and expectations. Family connection. I opened a new browser tab and searched Landon Mercer. His social media was public. His profile photo showed a young guy, maybe 30, standing next to a woman I recognized immediately. Brooke's cousin. Her favorite cousin. The one she talked about constantly. The one she'd said was struggling to find work just 2 months ago. I went back through the memo. The date stamp was 3 weeks ago, but the recommendation had been submitted 5 weeks before that. 8 weeks total. 8 weeks ago, Brooke was still smiling at me, still kissing me goodbye in the mornings, still talking about vacation plans for next summer. 8 weeks ago, she was already helping her family take my job. I saved everything. Every screenshot, every document, every connection. I created a folder on my desktop titled Employment Records and backed it up in 4 places. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called a lawyer. The first one I reached was too expensive. The second one didn't return my call. The third one, a woman named Patricia Oakes, answered on the second ring. "Tell me what happened," she said after I explained I needed help with the separation. I told her everything. The interview, the layoff, the separation papers, the drained bank account, Brooke's cousin getting recommended for my position. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Ward," she said finally, "do you have documentation for all of this?" "Yes." "Good. Don't delete anything, don't share it with anyone yet, and whatever you do, don't sign those separation papers." "What do I do instead?" "You come to my office Monday morning at 9. We're going to build a case, a real one. With evidence." "What kind of case? The kind that shows you're not unstable, the kind that shows you're being targeted, the kind that proves everything you just told me." For the first time in a week, I felt like I could breathe properly. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me yet," Patricia said. "This is going to get worse before it gets better. Are you ready for that?" I looked at my screen, at Landon's smiling face next to Brooke, at the memo that proved my job was stolen, at the bank records showing my money gone. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." That night, I slept better than I had in days. Not because things were good, but because I finally had a plan that wasn't just surviving. It was fighting back properly. Legally. With proof. Monday morning, I sat in Patricia's office and watched her read through everything I'd brought. She didn't react much, just nodded, made notes, and occasionally circled something on the documents. When she finished, she looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "This is worse than you thought," she said. "Worse how?" "You don't just have a separation issue, you have a potential employment discrimination case. Maybe fraud, possibly conspiracy, though that's harder to prove." "Conspiracy?" The word sounded too dramatic for real life. "Look at the timeline," Patricia said, spreading out the documents like pieces of a puzzle. 8 weeks ago, someone recommends your wife's cousin for a position that doesn't exist yet. 5 weeks ago, they get internal approval to eliminate your position. 3 weeks ago, Victor Klein humiliates you in an interview. 2 weeks ago, you get laid off. Last week, your wife files for separation and drains your bank account. She tapped each document as she spoke, showing how they connected. That's not coincidence, she said. That's coordination. My stomach twisted. You think Brooke knew? I think Brooke's family knew. Whether she knew from the start or got pulled in later, can't say yet, but someone orchestrated this. And Victor Klein is at the center. I thought about Victor's when he'd mocked my resume, the way he'd laughed, the way he'd told me to bring a backbone next time. What do? I asked. First, you don't sign anything, Patricia said. Second, you file a response to the separation that preserves your rights to the house and the marital assets. Third, we start pulling records, your wife's phone records, her bank transactions, communication with her family. We build a timeline that proves this was planned. Can we do that? Legally? In a divorce or separation, financial disclosure is mandatory. She'll have to show where the money went. And if there's evidence of conspiracy to interfere with your employment, that's a separate legal issue. Patricia opened her laptop and started typing. There's something else, she said. Your layoff. The timing is suspicious enough that we might be able to file a wrongful termination claim. If we can prove Victor Klein targeted you personally, not for performance reasons, but for personal or discriminatory reasons, that's actionable. What counts as personal reasons? Humiliation, retaliation, targeting you because of family connections or influence. She looked up. Did Victor know about your wife's family before the interview? I thought about it. I don't know. Brooke never mentioned knowing him, but Sharon knows everyone. She's connected to half the business community somehow. Then we need to find that connection, Patricia said, because if Sharon influenced Victor to eliminate your position so her family could benefit, that's not just unethical. It's potentially illegal. A text message lit up my phone. Brooke, we need the signed papers by tonight. This is your last chance to do this the easy way. I showed Patricia the text. Perfect, she said, taking a screenshot. More documentation. Don't respond. Let her think you're considering it. And if she shows up at the house, you film the conversation on your phone. You stay calm. You don't sign anything. And you tell her your lawyer will be in touch. Your lawyer. It felt strange saying that. I'd never needed a lawyer before. I'd never been in a situation where my own wife was threatening me. Patricia packed up the documents into a folder. Mr. Ward, I need to be honest with you. This is going to be expensive, and it's going to be hard. They're going to attack your character. They're going to try to make you look unstable, angry, vindictive. Can you handle that? I thought about Victor's laughter, Sharon's smile, Brooke's pity, the $47 in my account. Yes, I said. I can handle it. Good, because we're not just defending you, we're going after them. That afternoon I got another email, this time from an address I didn't recognize. Email protected. I almost deleted it as spam. Then I saw the subject line, FYI, you should know this. Inside was a single line and an attachment. Don't tell anyone I said this, but your job got posted internally. Thought you'd want to see it. The attachment was a job listing. My exact job description. Same responsibilities, same team. New title, Senior Operations Coordinator. And at the bottom, in a field I'd never seen on job listings before. Recommended candidate, Landon Mercer. But that wasn't the part that made me stop breathing. The part that made me stop breathing was the line above it. Position sponsor Victor Klein. Victor hadn't just approved my layoff. He'd personally sponsored my replacement with Brooke's cousin. I forwarded the email to Patricia immediately. Then I sat back and tried to understand how deep this really went. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it. Caleb? A woman's voice. Familiar but distant. Yes? It's Ashley, from your old department. We worked together for 3 years. Ashley. Hi. I hadn't talked to her since the layoff. How are you? I'm okay. Listen, I can't talk long, but I heard what happened to you, and I wanted you to know. People are talking. This wasn't a normal layoff. What do you mean? I mean, Victor pushed it personally. HR didn't want to do it. There were arguments, but Victor insisted, and when Victor insists, it happens. My heart pounded. Did he say why? No. But Caleb, the guy who got your job, he's completely unqualified. We're training him on stuff you could do in your sleep. It doesn't make sense unless what? Ashley hesitated. Unless it wasn't about qualifications, it was about something else. Like what? I don't know, but be careful. Victor has a reputation. For what? For ruining people who don't kneel. She hung up before I could ask what that meant. I sat in my car outside Patricia's office, staring at my phone, and felt the pieces clicking together. This wasn't just about a job. It wasn't just about a separation. This was about power. About people who thought they could erase me because I wasn't useful anymore. They thought I'd just disappear quietly. They were wrong. I needed clarity. I needed someone who understood the business world and could tell me if I was crazy or if what I was seeing was really happening. I called Evelyn Price. Evelyn had been my mentor 15 years ago when I first started in operations management. She'd retired 5 years back, but still consulted for major firms. She was steady, smart, and never dramatic. If anyone could tell me the truth without sugarcoating it, it was Evelyn. We met at a coffee shop downtown the next morning. Evelyn looked the same. Gray hair cut short, reading glasses on a chain, dressed like someone who'd spent 40 years in boardrooms and didn't need to impress anyone anymore. She ordered black coffee and listened while I explained everything. I kept my voice low. I showed her the documents on my phone. The layoff notice, the replacement listing, the memo about Landon. She didn't interrupt. She just listened, her face neutral. When I finished, she took a sip of her coffee and set it down carefully. "Caleb," she said, "you're not crazy." Relief hit me like cold water. You're not paranoid. You're not unstable. What you're describing is real, and it's more common than you'd think. Common? Corporate manipulation. Using personal connections to move people around like chess pieces. It's unethical, sometimes illegal, and it happens all the time. She leaned forward. What you're seeing isn't random, you're being managed. Managed? Controlled, maneuvered. Someone wanted you out, and they built a system to make it happen cleanly. The interview humiliation was meant to break your confidence. The layoff was meant to destabilize you financially. The separation was meant to isolate you. And if you'd signed those papers, you'd have walked away with nothing and no way to fight back. I felt sick. Why would they do this? I don't know yet. But Victor Klein is involved, your wife's family is involved, and they all benefited. That's not coincidence. That's collaboration. So what do I do? Evelyn pulled out her phone and typed something. There's a firm I consult for. Smaller than Victor's company, but solid. They're hiring for a senior operations role. Nothing flashy. Real work. Real respect. She showed me the listing. The salary was lower than what I'd made before, but not by much. The company name was Brennan Solutions. I can put in a word for you, Evelyn said. But Caleb, you need to be prepared for something. What? Victor Klein has a reputation. He doesn't just fire people. He ruins them. If he thinks you're coming back, if he thinks you're a threat, he'll make sure no one wants to hire you. How? Quiet conversations. References that sound good but say nothing. Rumors about instability or poor performance. It's all legal. It's all deniable. And it works. I felt anger rising, hot and sharp. So I just let him win? No, Evelyn said firmly. You get hired somewhere he can't touch. You rebuild and you wait. Wait for what? For the right moment, for leverage, for karma. She smiled slightly. Bad people don't fall because good people push them. They fall because they build their success on sand, and eventually it collapses. I wasn't sure I believed in karma, but I believed in Evelyn. One morning, she said as we stood to leave, Victor Klein has a reputation for ruining people who don't kneel. If you stand up to him, even quietly, he'll notice. And he won't like it. I'm already ruined, I said. What else can he do? Evelyn looked at me with something like pity. You'd be surprised. But she made the call anyway. 2 days later, I had an interview at Brennan Solutions. This time, I printed my resume on good paper. Not because it mattered, but because I wasn't giving anyone a reason to mock me again. The interview went well. They asked real questions. They listened to my answers. Nobody laughed. A week later, they offered me the job. I started the following Monday. Brennan Solutions wasn't impressive from the outside. The office was in an older building, the desks looked like they'd been bought in the 90s, and the coffee machine made noises like it was dying. But nobody mocked me. Nobody asked about my personal life. They gave me work, I did it, and they respected the results. It felt like breathing clean air after months in smoke. My first 2 weeks were quiet. I learned the systems, met the team, and kept my head down. I worked like a man rebuilding a life 1 honest hour at a time. The pay was enough to rent a small apartment. Nothing fancy but mine. I moved out of the house. Brooke had changed the locks anyway and set up a space that felt like peace. Every night I updated my documentation. Bank records, court filings, emails from Patricia. I kept everything organized, backed up, ready. Brooke tried calling twice. I didn't answer. Patricia said any communication should go through her now. Clean, professional, no emotion. Sharon left a voicemail. Caleb, you're being childish. Call Brooke back. Work this out like adults. I deleted it without responding. At work I focused. My supervisor, a woman named Cynthia Brennan, was direct but fair. She gave me a project auditing client contracts, and I found 3 billing errors that saved the company thousands. Good work, Cynthia said. She didn't make a big deal out of it, just noted it and moved on. That's what I needed. Work where good work mattered. In my second month, Cynthia called me into her office. My stomach tightened. Offices with closed doors still made me nervous. Relax, she said, seeing my face. You're not in trouble. I sat down. We've been approached for a deal, she said, sliding a folder across her desk. A big one. Acquisition opportunity. The kind that could double our revenue if it works. That's great, I said. It is, but it's complicated. The company we're looking at has a reputation for creative accounting and internal chaos. We need someone who can audit their operations thoroughly. Someone detail-oriented and trustworthy. Okay. I want you to lead the due diligence. I blinked. Me? I've only been here 2 months. And you've already proven you're thorough. I need someone who will find the problems, not hide them to make the deal look good. She tapped the folder. This is important, Caleb. Can you handle it? Yes. She handed me the folder. Good. You start tomorrow. Everything you need is in here. Financials, org charts, contracts. Read it all. Find the risks. I took the folder and stood to leave. Oh, Cynthia said, stopping me at the door. One more thing. The company we're potentially acquiring? Yes? Klein Systems. My blood went cold. You okay? Cynthia asked. I forced myself to nod. Yeah, just surprised. Good surprised or bad surprised? I'll let you know after I read the file. She smiled. That's the right answer. I walked back to my desk, set the folder down and stared at the cover. Klein Systems. Victor's company. The company that had fired me. The company that had hired Brooke's cousin to replace me. The company at the center of everything that had destroyed my life. And now I was being asked to audit it, to find its weaknesses, to evaluate whether it was worth $200 million. I opened the folder with hands that were steadier than I expected. The first page was a summary sheet. The second page was Victor Klein's executive bio. The third page was a financial overview, and something immediately caught my eye. Projected revenue looked too perfect. Too smooth, like someone had drawn a graph of what investors wanted to see instead of what was actually happening. I kept reading. By page 20, I'd found my first inconsistency. By page 40, I'd found 3 more. This company had problems. Real ones. And I was going to find every single one, not for revenge, for the truth. But if truth happened to feel like justice, I wouldn't complain. I took the folder home that night and spread everything across my kitchen table. Financial statements, client contracts, organizational charts, emails between executives that probably weren't supposed to be in the due diligence package but had been included anyway. Someone at Klein Systems either didn't care or didn't know what they were revealing. I started with the basics. Revenue, cash flow, expenses. The numbers looked good on the surface, steady growth, strong margins, happy clients. But when I dug deeper, the pattern fell apart. Revenue spikes happened in predictable quarters, always right before investor reports or board meetings. Then they'd flatten or drop slightly the next quarter before spiking again. That's not how real business growth works. That's how manipulated numbers work. I cross-referenced the revenue spikes with the client list. Most of the big contracts were with companies I'd never heard of. I searched them online. 3 didn't have websites. 2 had websites that looked like they'd been built in an afternoon. 1 had a phone number that went to a voicemail box that was full. These weren't real clients. They were paper companies, entities created to make revenue look bigger than it was. I documented everything. Screenshots, notes, cross-references to other documents in the folder. Then I found something that made my stomach drop. Buried in an appendix marked Internal Memos, Routine, I found a risk assessment note dated 3 months ago. Major client Atlas Corp considering contract termination due to service delivery failures. Estimated revenue impact, $12 million annually. Mitigation strategies under review. $12 million. That was roughly 15% of Klein Systems' annual revenue. If Atlas Corp walked, the company's valuation would crater. And if this information wasn't disclosed properly during the acquisition, Brennan Solutions would be buying a company that was worth far less than advertised. I checked the main disclosure documents. No mention of Atlas Corp, no mention of any at-risk contracts. Someone was hiding this. Either they were hoping it would resolve before the deal closed, or they were counting on no one finding it. They hadn't counted on me. I went to work the next morning and walked straight to Cynthia's office. "I found something," I said. She looked up from her computer. "Already?" "Yeah, we need to talk about it." She closed her laptop and gestured for me to sit. "Show me." I laid out the documents, the revenue patterns, the fake clients, the Atlas Corp risk note. Cynthia's face stayed neutral, but her eyes sharpened. "How confident are you about this?" "Very. The patterns are clear, and this memo about Atlas Corp is recent. If they were planning to disclose it, it would be in the main documents, which means they're hiding it. Or they think it'll resolve before closing. Either way, it's a material risk." Cynthia leaned back in her chair. "Good catch. How'd you find this?" "I read everything, and I looked for what wasn't there as much as what was." She smiled slightly. "You know what you just did?" "What?" "You might have saved us from a $12 million mistake. Maybe more." I didn't smile back. "The buyout number is $200 million, right? That's the starting point. If Atlas Corp walks and these fake revenue numbers get corrected, what's the real valuation?" Cynthia pulled out a calculator and ran numbers. "Rough estimate, $150 million, maybe less. That's a $50 million gap, at least." She closed the calculator. "This changes everything. We'll need to confront them with this during negotiations, see how they respond. And if they lie, then we walk away." I felt something shift inside me. Not satisfaction exactly, but clarity. This was real work, honest work, finding truth and letting it speak for itself. "Caleb," Cynthia said, "I'm going to need you in the buyout meeting." My heart jumped. "Me? You found this. You understand it. And frankly, if Victor Klein tries to spin it, I want someone there who can call it out immediately." The thought of sitting across from Victor again made my hands cold. But I nodded. "When?" I asked. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to prepare, to document everything, to make sure I had every fact locked down so tight that Victor couldn't spin his way out of it. "One more thing," Cynthia said as I stood to leave. "This stays between us for now. Don't tell anyone what you found. Not your team, not your friends, nobody. Understood?" "Good, because Caleb, this is the kind of work that makes careers or breaks them. Are you ready for that?" I thought about the resume humiliation, the layoff, the separation papers, Brooke's pity, Sharon's threats. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." Over the next 2 weeks, I became an expert on Klein Systems. I read every document 3 times. I traced every revenue source. I verified every client. The more I found, the worse it looked. Victor had built his company's success on shortcuts and deception. Not criminal, maybe, but unethical, dangerous, the kind of thing that collapses under scrutiny. And I was about to bring the scrutiny. On the morning of the buyout meeting, I dressed carefully, professional but not flashy. I printed my notes on good paper, not because anyone would judge it, but because I refused to give Victor a reason to mock me again. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. 2 months ago, I'd been broken. Now I was steady, focused, dangerous. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I knew the truth, and the truth has weight. I drove to the office where the meeting would be held. The building was glass and steel, the kind of place designed to intimidate. But I wasn't intimidated anymore. I walked through those doors like a man who belonged there. Because I did. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. I arrived at 1:30 and spent the extra time reviewing my notes one last time. Cynthia found me in the conference room, spreadsheets and documents organized in neat stacks in front of me. "You ready?" she asked. "Yes." "Good. Remember, stay calm, stick to facts. Don't make it personal." "It's not personal," I said. And I meant it. This wasn't about Victor mocking me or Brooke betraying me. This was about numbers, contracts, and risks. This was about protecting Brennan's solutions from a bad deal. If Victor happened to get exposed in the process, that was just math. The board members arrived first, 4 people in expensive suits who nodded at me without really seeing me. Then Cynthia's partners filed in, along with our legal team and financial advisors. At exactly 2 p.m., the door opened and Victor walked in. He looked the same, confident, polished. The kind of man who expected rooms to rearrange themselves around him. His legal counsel followed him in, along with 2 executives I didn't recognize. Victor scanned the room, shaking hands and making small talk. When his eyes landed on me, his brain seemed to take a second to process what he was seeing. Then his smile glitched. Just for half a second. "Well," he said, recovering fast, "look who learned how to print." The room went quiet. I kept my voice calm. "It's good to see you too, Mr. Klein." Victor's eyes flicked down to my nameplate on the table. Caleb Ward, lead due diligence. His smile tightened. Everyone sat down. Cynthia opened the meeting with pleasantries and structure. Victor responded smoothly, talking about synergies and growth opportunities and all the words people use when they want to sound important. I stayed quiet, taking notes, watching. Then Cynthia turned to me. "Caleb, why don't you walk us through your initial findings?" I opened my folder. "Overall," I said, "Klein Systems shows strong historical performance with several areas of concern that require clarification." Victor leaned back in his chair, relaxed. He thought I was going to be softball questions and safe analysis. "Specifically," I continued, "revenue patterns show unusual spikes tied to quarter-end reporting periods, which raise questions about revenue recognition practices. Additionally, several major clients listed in the financials don't appear to have significant operational footprints, suggesting potential overstatement of contract values." Victor's smile stayed in place, but his eyes hardened. "Furthermore," I said, not looking up from my notes, "there's a material risk note in the internal memos regarding Atlas Corp's potential contract termination, representing approximately $12 million in annual revenue. This risk wasn't disclosed in the primary due diligence documents." The room shifted. Board members looked at each other. Cynthia's expression stayed neutral, but I could see her satisfaction. Victor sat forward. "Those concerns are addressed in our supplementary disclosures." "I didn't find them there," I said calmly. "Then you didn't look hard enough, kid." "Kid." The word was meant to diminish me, to make me sound inexperienced and wrong. I pulled out a document and slid it across the table. "This is the Supplementary Disclosure Index. Atlas Corp isn't mentioned anywhere. Would you like to show me where I missed it?" Victor's counsel leaned over and whispered something. Victor's jaw tightened. "That risk is speculative," he said. "Atlas Corp has been a client for 6 years. There's no indication they're actually terminating." I pulled out another document. "This is Atlas Corp's formal notice of concern, dated 45 days ago, citing service delivery failures and requesting a performance review meeting. That's not speculation, that's documentation." One of the board members spoke up. "Mr. Klein, was this disclosed to your board?" Victor's face reddened slightly. "It was discussed in executive sessions." "But not formally documented?" the board member pressed. "It's being managed," Victor said tersely. "By whom?" Cynthia asked. Victor looked at me like he wanted to reach across the table and snap my folder in half. "By my operations team. The same team that apparently taught Mr. Ward here how to read financial documents." The insult hung in the air. Cynthia's voice stayed professional. "Mr. Ward's analysis is thorough and well documented. If there are errors in his findings, please provide the correct information." Victor tried another tactic. "Look, every company has clients who express concerns from time to time. It's part of business. We address them. We retain them. This is normal." $12 million isn't normal, I said. $12 million is 15% of your annual revenue. If Atlas Corp walks, your valuation drops significantly. "If they walk," Victor repeated. "They haven't walked." "Yet," I said. The word landed like a stone. One of Victor's executives jumped in, trying to smooth things over with talk about client retention strategies and relationship management. But the damage was done. The board members were taking notes. Cynthia's team was asking follow-up questions. The meeting went on for another hour. More questions, more careful non-answers from Victor's team. More documents from my stack that contradicted their claims. By the time we took a break, Victor looked like a man watching his perfect presentation fall apart. He pulled his counsel aside in the hallway. I saw him gesturing sharply, his voice low but angry. When we reconvened, Victor's approach had changed. He was cooperative now, professional. He acknowledged the Atlas Core risk, said they were addressing it, promised more documentation, but it was too late. The trust was broken. At the end of the meeting, Cynthia thanked everyone and said we'd reconvene after reviewing additional materials. As people filed out, Victor stopped next to my chair. "That was clever," he said quietly, "finding that memo. Very thorough." "Thank you," I said. "You know what happens to people who are too thorough?" I looked up at him. "They get promoted?" Victor's smile was ice. "They get fired. Again." He walked out before I could respond. Cynthia appeared beside me. "You okay?" "Yeah." "That was excellent work, Caleb. Exactly what we needed. Thank you. But Victor's not going to forget this. You know that, right?" I packed up my documents. "I know. Can you handle the fallout?" I thought about the last time Victor had destroyed my life, how he'd made it look effortless, how he'd smiled while doing it. "Yes," I said. "I can handle it." But that night, I double-checked every lock on my apartment. And I backed up all my files one more time, because Victor Klein didn't just fire people. He ruined them. And now he knew I was the one standing in his way. The next few days felt like waiting for a storm. I went to work. I did my job. I kept my head down. But I could feel Victor's attention like a weight on my back. Cynthia gave me more documents to review, supplementary disclosures. Victor's team had rushed to provide after the meeting. Most of it was spin. Carefully worded explanations that sounded good, but didn't actually address the problems. I flagged every inconsistency, every vague promise, every piece of data that looked polished but felt hollow. "You're good at this," Cynthia said after I handed in my 5th report. "At what?" "Seeing through corporate nonsense," she smiled. "Most people believe the smooth answers. You dig until you find the truth." I just read carefully. Most people don't. That's what makes you valuable. On Thursday afternoon, I found something that made my hands stop moving. Another internal memo, this one buried even deeper in the supplementary files. It wasn't labeled as high priority. It looked like routine corporate communication, but the content wasn't routine at all. Internal note: Atlas Core contract status update. Client has formally requested transition planning meeting. Legal advises preparing contingency revenue projections, assuming termination within 90 days. Do not disclose externally until resolution confirmed. Do not disclose externally. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. Victor's team knew Atlas Core was almost certainly walking away. They had known for weeks, and they'd been explicitly instructed to hide it during the acquisition negotiations. That wasn't just poor disclosure. That was fraud. I called Cynthia immediately. "I need to show you something," I said. She came to my desk. I showed her the memo. Her face went still. "When was this dated?" 3 weeks ago, a week before the first buyout discussion. So they knew. They absolutely knew. Yes. Cynthia pulled out her phone and stepped away. I heard her speaking quietly, urgently. When she came back, her expression was serious. "We're calling an emergency board meeting," she said. "Tomorrow morning, I need you to present this." "Me?" "You found it. You understand it. And Caleb, this isn't just about due diligence anymore. If Victor Klein knowingly concealed material information during acquisition negotiations, that's securities fraud." My stomach dropped. Securities fraud? If the deal had closed with this information hidden and it came out later, shareholders could sue. The SEC could investigate. This is serious. What happens now? Now we confront him, formally, with lawyers present. And if he can't provide a legitimate explanation, the deal dies. I spent that night preparing, not just reviewing documents, but organizing them into a clear narrative, timeline, evidence, conclusions. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about protecting Brennan Solutions from a massive legal and financial mistake. But I'd be lying if I said part of me didn't feel satisfaction. Victor had tried to mock me, fire me, bury me. Now I was the one holding evidence that could destroy his biggest deal. The emergency meeting was at 8 a.m. Victor arrived with a full legal team, 3 attorneys I didn't recognize, all carrying briefcases like weapons. His face was calm, but his eyes weren't. Cynthia opened the meeting. "Mr. Klein, we've discovered additional information that concerns us significantly. Caleb, please present your findings. I walked them through it. The memo. The timeline. The explicit instruction not to disclose. Victor's lead attorney jumped in immediately. That memo is being taken out of context. The phrase "do not disclose externally" refers to competitive intelligence concerns, not acquisition disclosures. Then why wasn't Atlas Corp's termination risk mentioned in any formal documents? I asked. Because it's not a termination, it's a renegotiation. The memo says transition planning, I pointed out. That's not renegotiation language. The attorney looked at Victor. Victor leaned forward. Mr. Ward, he said, his voice sharp, you're reading a lot into internal communications that weren't meant for external review. They're part of the due diligence package you provided. They were included by mistake. Then you're admitting they shouldn't have been disclosed because they contain material information you're trying to hide. Victor's face reddened. I'm admitting no such thing. One of the board members spoke up. Mr. Klein, is Atlas Corp terminating their contract or not? Victor hesitated, just for a second, but everyone saw it. We're in discussions, he said carefully. That's not an answer, the board member said. It's the only answer I can give while negotiations are ongoing. The room erupted in careful, professional chaos. Board members asking questions, attorneys conferring, Cynthia and her partners exchanging looks. I stayed quiet, my documents in front of me, and watched Victor realize he couldn't spin his way out of this. Finally, Cynthia spoke. We're going to need time to evaluate this new information. This meeting is adjourned pending further review. Victor stood up fast, his chair scraping. This is a waste of everyone's time. The deal is solid. Then you'll have no problem providing clear documentation about Atlas Corp's actual status, Cynthia said calmly. Victor looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw recognition dawn in his eyes, not of who I was, but of what I'd become. An obstacle, a threat. You're making a mistake, he said to the room, but his eyes stayed on me. We'll see, Cynthia said. Victor and his team left. The door closed behind them with a heavy sound that felt final. Cynthia turned to me. Caleb, that was... Her phone buzzed, then mine, then everyone's at once. I looked at my screen. Email alert from Atlas Corp to their entire client network. The subject line made my blood run cold. Notice contract termination with Klein Systems effective immediately. The email was public, official, immediate. The deal wasn't just at risk anymore. The deal was dead. For 3 days after Atlas Corp's announcement, Victor's world burned slowly and publicly. News outlets picked up the story. Industry analysts revised Klein Systems valuations downward. Investors started asking hard questions. And through it all, I kept working. Quietly. Professionally, documenting everything. Then Brooke called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Caleb, she said. Her voice was soft, careful. The voice she used when she wanted something. I've been thinking about us, about everything that happened. Okay, I said neutrally. I think maybe we moved too fast with the separation. Maybe we should have talked more. I heard murmuring in the background. Sharon's voice, quiet but distinct like a director feeding lines to an actress. What changed? I asked. I miss you. I miss us, and I've had time to think about what really matters. Which is family, partnership, working through problems instead of running from them. The words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced them. Where are you working now? Brooke asked, her tone shifting slightly. You said you found something downtown? Yeah, a firm. Doing what? Operations work, analysis, the usual. That's great, Caleb. I'm really happy you landed on your feet. She paused. What kind of firm? There it was, the question she actually wanted to ask. Consulting, I said vaguely. For what kind of clients? Brooke, why are you asking about my job? I'm just interested. I want to know how you're doing. Is that wrong? No, it's just sudden. Well, I care about you. I always have. Her voice dropped lower, intimate. Caleb, if there's any part of you that still loves me, can we have dinner? Just talk? No pressure. I thought about saying no, hanging up, blocking her number, but I was curious. If Victor's deal was falling apart and Brooke was suddenly interested in my life, there had to be a connection. Okay, I said. Dinner, Saturday. Really? She sounded genuinely surprised. Thank you, Caleb. I'll text you the details. She hung up. 30 seconds later, a text arrived with the name of an expensive restaurant I definitely couldn't afford on my current salary. But I'd go. because I wanted to see what she was really after. Saturday arrived. I wore a suit I'd bought at a discount store, nothing fancy but professional. The restaurant was the kind of place where the menu didn't have prices, and the host looked at your shoes before deciding where to seat you. I gave Brooke's name. The host led me to a table near the back. Brooke was already there. So was Sharon. Of course Sharon was there. "Caleb," Brooke said, standing to hug me. I let her, but kept it brief. "I'm so glad you came." Sharon smiled that terrible smile. "Caleb, you look well." "Thank you," I said, sitting down. A waiter appeared immediately, poured water, recited specials I wasn't listening to. After he left, Brooke leaned forward. "I really have been thinking about us," she said. "About what went wrong. And I think I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For not supporting you. For listening to other people instead of listening to you. She glanced at Sharon, for letting outside influences affect our marriage. Sharon's face stayed pleasant, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "The truth is," Brooke continued, "I made mistakes, and I want to fix them, if you'll let me." "How do you plan to fix them?" "By being honest, by being partners again, by trusting each other." Sharon cut in smoothly. "We've all had time to reflect, Caleb. Emotions ran high, things were said, but families work through difficult times together." Family, there was that word again. "I'm not sure we're family anymore," I said. "You filed separation papers, remember?" "Which we can withdraw," Brooke said quickly. "If you want to. If you think we deserve another chance." The waiter returned. We ordered. I picked something in the middle price range, very aware that someone would have to pay this bill, and I didn't want it to be me. After the waiter left, Sharon spoke again. "Brooke tells me you're working downtown now. That's wonderful. We always knew you'd bounce back." "We always believed you'd find something," Brooke added. "You're resilient like that." The praise felt wrong. Too thick, too sudden. "What kind of work are you doing?" Sharon asked casually, cutting into her appetizer. "Still operations?" "Yes." "For which company?" "A consulting firm." "Which one?" "Brennan Solutions." Sharon's fork paused, just for a second, then she continued eating like nothing happened. But Brooke's reaction was different. Her eyes widened slightly. She set down her water glass carefully. "Brennan Solutions?" she repeated. "Yes. That's the firm involved in the Klein Systems acquisition, isn't it?" So she knew. Of course she knew. "Yes," I said. Sharon leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Caleb, that's incredible. What a coincidence. What exactly are you working on there?" "I can't discuss active projects," I said. "Confidentiality agreements." Of course, Sharon said quickly. "I wouldn't ask you to violate any agreements, but surely you can tell your family generally what your role is?" "Your family." As if filing separation papers and draining my bank account made us family. "I do due diligence work," I said. "On the Klein Systems deal?" Brooke asked. "Among other things." The food arrived. We ate in loaded silence. Every few minutes one of them would try another angle, asking about my team, my boss, my day-to-day work. I gave vague answers, watched them get frustrated. Finally, Brooke reached across the table and took my hand. "Caleb," she said, her voice soft and pleading. "If you ever loved me, if any part of what we had was real, please come home." I looked at her hand on mine. Once, that touch would have meant everything. Now it just felt cold. "Come home," I repeated. "Yes, to me, to us, we can fix this," Sharon added quietly. "And Caleb, if you come home, you can trust your family. You can share your life with us, your work, your challenges, your successes. That's what family does." There it was, the real ask. They didn't want me back. They wanted information. "What clients does your firm work with?" Sharon asked, abandoning subtlety entirely. "Besides Klein Systems, I mean. What other deals are you involved in?" I pulled my hand away from Brooke's. "Why do you want to know?" I asked. "I'm just interested," Sharon said. "No, you're not. You're asking because someone wants to know what I'm working on." "Who told you to ask?" "Victor?" Sharon's face hardened. "Caleb, you're being paranoid." "Am I?" "Because this dinner feels less like reconciliation and more like information gathering." Brooke's eyes filled with tears. Real ones, I think. "Caleb, that's not fair. I really do want us to work." "Then why is your mother here? For support? Or for strategy?" Sharon stood up. "If you're going to be hostile, this conversation is over." "It was over before it started," I said, standing too. "You don't want me back, Brooke. You want information, and I'm not giving it to you." I pulled out enough cash to cover my share of the meal and set it on the table. "Caleb, wait," Brooke said, but I was already walking toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Sharon's voice, low and sharp. "Let him go, he's made his choice." I drove home with my hands shaking, not from fear, but from anger. They thought I was still the man who could be manipulated. The man who'd sit there and let them fish for information while pretending to care. They were wrong. When I got home, I sent Patricia a message. They tried to get information about the Klein deal. "Document it." She responded immediately. "Already did." This keeps getting worse for them. I sat in my apartment and realized something. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the weapon, and they had no idea how sharp I'd become. 3 days later, Sharon called me directly. "Not Brooke, Sharon." "Caleb," she said, her voice cold and professional. No pretense of warmth. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About the position you're putting yourself in. About the consequences of your choices." "I'm not following." "You know exactly what I mean. The Klein Systems deal. Your role in sabotaging it. The information you're selectively disclosing to damage Victor's reputation." I almost laughed. "I'm doing my job. Due diligence means finding problems. It means finding accurate information, not weaponizing selective facts to punish people you have personal vendettas against." "I don't have a vendetta. I have documentation." Sharon's voice dropped. "Caleb, if you don't help us, you'll regret it." The threat hung in the air, clear and sharp. "Help you how?" I asked. "By being reasonable. By understanding that Victor Klein is a powerful man with powerful connections. By recognizing that your little revenge fantasy will only hurt you in the end." "I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in truth." Truth is subjective, Caleb. And in the business world, perception matters more than facts. If you continue down this path, if you keep interfering with Victor's business, there will be consequences. Legal ones. Professional ones. Personal ones. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. There's a difference. Not really. Sharon sighed, like I was a difficult child. I tried to be nice. I tried to give you an opportunity to reconcile with Brooke, to be part of the family again, to benefit from the connections we could provide. But you chose to be stubborn. I chose to have integrity. Integrity doesn't pay the bills, Caleb. Connections do. Power does, and you're on the wrong side of both. She hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, and realized something. They were scared. Really scared. If they weren't, Sharon wouldn't have called. She wouldn't have made threats. She would have just let things play out. But they needed me to back down. Which meant what I'd found was even more damaging than I'd thought. I called Patricia immediately and told her about the conversation. "Did you record it?" she asked. "No." "Damn. Next time, record everything. But write down exactly what she said while it's fresh. We can use it." "For what?" "For showing a pattern of intimidation. It supports your wrongful termination case. It shows they're coordinating to protect Victor Klein's interests at your expense." I wrote down everything Sharon had said word for word and sent it to Patricia. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Sharon's voice, the certainty in it, the threat. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello?" Heavy breathing. Then a click. I blocked the number. 2 minutes later, another call. Different number. Same heavy breathing. I blocked that one too. It happened 3 more times before I turned off my phone. The next morning, I found an envelope under my apartment door. No stamp. No return address. Hand-delivered. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A cease and desist letter. Professionally printed on law firm letterhead. Cease and desist all dissemination of proprietary and confidential information regarding Klein Systems. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action, including claims for damages, defamation, and breach of fiduciary duty. I read it twice. The language was broad and vague, intimidating but legally meaningless. I hadn't disseminated anything. I'd done due diligence as part of my job, but it was designed to scare me, to make me think I was doing something wrong. I photographed it and sent it to Patricia. She called me 30 seconds later. "This is nonsense," she said. "You haven't violated anything. They're trying to intimidate you." "It's working," I admitted. "Don't let it. This letter has no legal weight. It's a scare tactic. But Caleb, you need to be careful. If they're this aggressive, they're capable of more." "More like what?" "Harassment, surveillance, false allegations, Victor Klein has resources, and desperate people with resources do desperate things. That afternoon at work, I noticed a car parked across the street from our building. Black sedan, tinted windows. Same car I'd seen outside my apartment that morning. I didn't mention it to anyone, but I started documenting. Photos, times, license plate numbers. If they wanted to play surveillance games, I'd turn it into evidence. The buyout meeting was rescheduled for the following week. Cynthia pulled me aside the day before. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You seem distracted." "I'm fine." "Caleb, if Victor's people are pressuring you, I need to know. This firm will protect you." I hesitated. Then I told her about the calls, the cease and desist letter, the car. Her face darkened. "That's witness intimidation. We're bringing our lawyers to the meeting tomorrow, and we're documenting this formally." "Will that make it worse?" "Maybe. But Caleb, you can't let them bully you into silence, not after all the work you've done." She was right. I'd come too far to back down now. That night, I backed up all my files again, printed copies of everything, put one set in a safety deposit box at the bank. If they wanted to intimidate me, fine, but they weren't going to make evidence disappear. The next morning, I walked into that meeting room ready for battle. Not with weapons, with facts. The meeting started tense and got worse. Victor walked in with his full legal team again, plus 2 people I didn't recognize. They looked like the kind of people who solved problems quietly and didn't ask questions. I kept my eyes on my documents and stayed focused. Cynthia opened with formalities, then turned to the cease and desist letter. "Before we begin substantive discussions, I need to address the intimidation tactics directed at our due diligence team." Victor's lead attorney jumped in smoothly. "We're simply protecting our client's confidential information." "By threatening an employee doing his job?" Cynthia asked. "By surveilling him? By making harassing phone calls?" "We have no knowledge of any harassment." "Then you won't mind if we file a formal complaint with the Bar Association?" The attorney's face tightened slightly. "That won't be necessary. If there's been any miscommunication." "There's been intimidation," Cynthia said firmly. "And it stops now, or this deal ends immediately." Victor leaned forward. "Maybe if your employee wasn't selectively interpreting information to damage my company." "My employee is doing thorough due diligence," Cynthia interrupted, "which is exactly what we hired him to do. If his findings are inconvenient for you, that's your problem, not ours." The room was silent for a beat. Then one of the board members spoke. "Can we move forward with the substance of today's meeting?" Cynthia nodded. "Caleb, please present your updated analysis." I walked through everything I'd found since the last meeting. More phantom clients, more revenue irregularities, and most damaging, evidence that 3 senior executives had quietly started looking for new jobs in the past month. "Why would executives be job hunting if the company is stable?" I asked. Victor's face reddened. "People change jobs. It's normal." 3 senior executives in 4 weeks isn't normal, I said. "It's rats leaving a sinking ship." "That's speculation. It's pattern recognition." The meeting devolved from there. Victor trying to spin, me providing documentation that contradicted the spin. Cynthia's team asking increasingly sharp questions, Victor's team getting increasingly defensive. Finally, Cynthia called a recess. In the hallway, Victor cornered me near the coffee station. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he said quietly. "I think I'm thorough. You're destroying this deal out of spite, because I rejected you, because I hurt your feelings. I'm doing my job. Your job is to evaluate risk, not create it. The risk was already there. I just found it." Victor stepped closer. His voice dropped even lower. "Do you know what happens to people who cross me, Caleb? They get documentation." His face twisted. "They get buried, not literally, but professionally, financially, socially. They disappear, and nobody remembers their names." "Is that what you did to me the first time?" Victor smiled. "You're still here, aren't you? Still working, still fighting, so maybe I wasn't thorough enough." He walked away before I could respond. I stood there, coffee forgotten, and felt something settle inside me. Not fear, resolve. Victor thought I was fighting out of spite or emotion. He didn't understand that this wasn't personal anymore. This was principle. The meeting reconvened. For the next 2 hours, we worked through disclosures, adjustments, and revised valuations. Every time Victor's team tried to minimize a risk, I provided data showing why it mattered. By the end, the original $200 million buyout number was down to $180 million, and even that was contingent on verification of several claims. Victor's face was stone. His attorneys looked exhausted. "We'll need time to review these new conditions," Victor's lead attorney said. "You have 48 hours, Cynthia said. After that, we walk." Everyone filed out. I gathered my documents slowly, letting the room clear. Brooke was standing in the hallway when I stepped out. My stomach dropped. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "I work in the building," she said. "I saw your name on the meeting schedule. I wanted to talk." "We don't have anything to talk about." "Caleb, please. Just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I followed her to a quiet corner near the elevator bank. "What?" I said. "You need to stop," Brooke said. Her voice was desperate now, no pretense. "Whatever you're doing to Victor's deal, you need to stop." "I'm doing due diligence. You're destroying his company, and it's going to come back on you, on us." "There is no us, Brooke. You filed separation papers, remember? I can withdraw them. We can fix this, but you have to stop sabotaging Victor." "Why do you care so much about Victor Klein?" Brooke's face crumpled. "Because my family is connected to his success, Landon's job, my mother's investments, everything. It all depends on Victor's company staying strong. If you destroy him, you destroy us. So this was always about money." "It's about survival, Caleb, about practical reality, about understanding how the world actually works." "The world works on lies and manipulation? The world works on connections and loyalty, and you're betraying both." I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 20 years and barely recognized her. "I'm not betraying anything," I said. "I'm telling the truth. The truth isn't always the right thing to say." "Yes, it is. That's literally what truth means." Brooke grabbed my arm. "Caleb, if you don't stop, they're going to hurt you. Really hurt you. Victor has resources. He has lawyers. He has people who make problems disappear." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning. I still care about you, even if you don't believe me. Please just back off. Let the deal happen. Move on with your life." I pulled my arm away. "I can't do that." "Why not?" "Because it's wrong. Because people will lose money investing in a company that's built on lies. Because truth matters, even when it's inconvenient." Brooke stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "You're going to lose," she said softly. "You're going to lose everything again. And this time it'll be your own fault." She walked away, heels clicking against tile, and didn't look back. I stood there, alone in the hallway, and knew she was right about one thing. This was going to get worse. But I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. That night, I drove straight to Patricia's office. She listened to everything. Victor's threats, Brooke's warning, the surveillance, the cease and desist letter. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and sighed. "Caleb, I need to be honest with you. This has escalated beyond a simple separation case." "I know." "No, I don't think you do. What you're describing, the coordination between your wife, her mother, Victor Klein, the employment manipulation, the financial pressure, the intimidation, this is textbook harassment, possibly conspiracy." "Can we prove it?" "Some of it. The employment documentation helps, the financial records help, but the intimidation tactics are harder. They're designed to leave no fingerprints. So what do? We document everything. Every call, every letter, every threat. We build a timeline showing coordination, and we protect you legally while you finish the work you're doing." "How do we protect me?" Patricia pulled out a form. "First, we file a restraining order against Brooke and Sharon. No contact except through attorneys." "Will that work?" "It'll make any contact they initiate evidence of violation." "Second, we notify Klein Systems' legal team formally that you're represented and that all threats and harassment need to stop immediately." "Won't that make them angrier?" "Probably. But it also creates a paper trail. If anything happens to you professionally or personally after this notice, it becomes evidence of retaliation." I signed the forms. Patricia filed them electronically that night. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. Brooke, Sharon, unknown numbers, Victor's assistant. I forwarded them all to Patricia without listening. At work, Cynthia called me into her office. "Victor's team responded," she said. "They're rejecting the revised terms and threatening litigation if we don't proceed with the original deal structure." Can they do that? They can threaten. Whether they can win is another question. But Caleb, this is getting messy. Are you prepared for that? Yes. Because it's about to get messier. Victor filed a counterclaim alleging that you've defamed his company and violated confidentiality agreements. My blood went cold. I didn't violate anything. I know, our lawyers know, but he's trying to create enough legal chaos to force us to back down. What do? We fight back with evidence, with documentation, with the truth. She opened her laptop. And Caleb, I need you to be very thorough about something. I need you to find every connection between Victor Klein, your wife's family, and the decisions that led to your termination. Can you do that? Yes. Good. Because if we can prove Victor targeted you personally, it turns this from a business dispute into something much bigger. I spent the next 3 days digging corporate records, social media connections, property records, business registrations, and I found it. Sharon Wells, Brooke's mother, was listed as a minority investor in a holding company that owned 12% of Klein Systems. She'd invested 18 months ago, long before my layoff, long before Landon's hiring. But here's what made my hands shake. The investment was structured as a family trust. Beneficiaries listed included Brooke and Landon. My wife and her cousin both stood to profit directly from Klein Systems' success, which meant they had a financial motive to help Victor eliminate me and replace me with Landon. More than that, they had a contractual interest in making sure Victor's company stayed valuable. The buyout collapsing didn't just hurt Victor. It hurt them. I documented everything and took it to Cynthia. She read it twice, her face getting harder each time. "This is good," she said. "This is really good." Good for who? For us. For you. For proving that your termination wasn't about performance, it was about financial interest. They needed to replace you with someone who'd protect their investment rather than expose problems. Can we use this? We're going to use all of it. This isn't just about the buyout anymore. This is about showing a pattern of misconduct, fraud, and retaliation. She picked up her phone and called the legal team. Within an hour, we had a strategy meeting. By the end of the day, we had a plan. Confront Victor with everything. Give him one chance to come clean and renegotiate honestly. If he refused, we'd file formal complaints with regulatory agencies and walk away from the deal entirely. But there was one thing I needed to do first. I needed to make sure Brooke and Sharon couldn't claim they didn't know what they were involved in. That night, I sent them both a letter through Patricia. Clean, legal, documented. The letter outlined everything I'd found. The investment, the family trust, the coordination. It gave them 48 hours to withdraw from any interference in the buyout process. It also made clear that their attempts at intimidation were documented and would be used as evidence if necessary. I didn't expect them to respond. I just needed them to know. They knew. Sharon called Patricia's office screaming. The receptionist recorded the call. More evidence. Brooke showed up at my apartment that night, pounding on the door, demanding I talk to her. I filmed it from inside through the peephole, didn't open the door, and called the police to enforce the restraining order. She left before they arrived, but I had the footage. The next day, I walked into the final buyout meeting with a folder full of evidence that could bury Victor Klein. Not because I wanted to bury him, but because he'd buried me first, and I'd spent months crawling back up with proof in my hands. The courtroom was cold and institutional. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, rows of benches that looked designed to make everyone uncomfortable. Brooke sat on one side with Sharon and their attorney. I sat on the other side with Patricia. We weren't there for the buyout. We were there because Brooke had filed an emergency motion claiming I was hiding assets and needed to be compelled to disclose my finances immediately. It was a desperate move, a last attempt to find leverage. Patricia had warned me it would happen. When they can't win on substance, they try to win on procedure. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Then sat. Brooke's attorney, a man named Kenneth Holloway who looked like he charged by the breath, stood up and launched into his argument. Your Honor, Mr. Ward has consistently refused to cooperate with basic financial disclosure. He's employed at a firm that's allegedly involved in major corporate transactions, yet he claims poverty. We have reason to believe he's hiding substantial assets and income in order to avoid fair marital settlement. Patricia stood. Your Honor, Mr. Ward has provided complete financial disclosure. Every bank statement, pay stub, and asset has been documented. What Miss Wells' counsel is actually asking for is information about Mr. Ward's employer's business dealings, which are confidential and have nothing to do with marital assets. Holloway jumped back in. Your Honor, Mr. Ward is working on a $200 million acquisition. It's unreasonable to believe he's not receiving substantial compensation or bonuses. Your Honor, Patricia said calmly, Mr. Ward is a salaried employee. His compensation is documented and has been disclosed. The fact that his employer is involved in large deals doesn't mean he personally benefits. The judge looked at both attorneys. Does Mr. Ward have any ownership stake in Brennan Solutions? No, Your Honor, Patricia said. Any profit-sharing agreements? Bonus structures tied to specific deals? Standard annual bonus eligibility based on overall company performance, nothing specific to any individual transaction. The judge looked at Holloway. Then what assets do you believe he's hiding? Holloway hesitated. We believe he may have offshore accounts or trust structures that haven't been disclosed. Based on what evidence? Based on his refusal to provide full transparency. He's provided financial disclosure, the judge said. That's transparency. Do you have any actual evidence of hidden assets? Holloway looked at Sharon. She leaned forward and whispered something. He nodded. Your Honor, we believe Mr. Ward is being compensated in ways that don't appear on standard disclosures. We request the right to depose his employer and review confidential employment contracts. I felt Patricia tense beside me. Your Honor, she said, standing, this is a fishing expedition. Miss Wells's counsel has no evidence of hidden assets. They're attempting to gain access to Mr. Ward's employer's confidential business information for purposes that have nothing to do with this case. Or, Holloway said, Mr. Ward is hiding compensation through his employer, and we have a right to verify that. The judge looked at me. Mr. Ward, have you disclosed all assets and income? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. All accounts? All compensation? Everything, Your Honor. The judge turned back to Holloway. Then unless you can provide evidence suggesting otherwise, this motion is denied. Mr. Ward has complied with disclosure requirements. Your Honor. Denied, Mr. Holloway. If you discover actual evidence of hidden assets, you can file another motion. But I'm not going to allow you to harass his employer based on speculation. Holloway sat down. Sharon's face was stone. But then Holloway stood again. Your Honor, there's one more matter. We'd like to introduce evidence regarding Mr. Ward's mental state and fitness to participate in these proceedings. Patricia shot to her feet. Your Honor, this is outrageous. There's been no psychological evaluation, no expert testimony. We have statements from family members documenting erratic behavior, emotional instability, and concerning patterns consistent with psychological distress. I felt sick. This was what Brooke had meant when she said she documented my instability. Patricia's voice was ice. Your Honor, what they have are self-serving statements made by people with financial interest in this case. That's not evidence of mental instability. That's character assassination. The judge looked irritated. Mr. Holloway, do you have any medical or expert testimony? Not at this time, Your Honor, but we believe. Then it's not relevant to today's proceedings. If you want to raise competency issues, you need actual evidence, not family members calling someone names. Your Honor, Mrs. Wells witnessed concerning behavior directly. I'm sure she did. People going through separations often behave in ways their spouses find concerning. That doesn't make them incompetent. The judge closed her folder. This motion is denied. Financial disclosure stands as provided. Both parties are ordered to continue good faith negotiations through counsel. The gavel came down. We stood. The judge left. Holloway gathered his papers quickly, avoiding eye contact. Sharon stared at me from across the aisle, not with anger, with calculation, like she was deciding what to try next. Brooke wouldn't look at me at all. In the hallway outside, Patricia pulled me aside. That went well, she said. It didn't feel like it went well. They had nothing, no evidence, no case, just desperation, and the judge saw right through it. What happens next? Next, they'll probably try to settle, because they know if this goes to full trial, we'll bring up the investment connections, the employment manipulation, all of it. And they can't afford that kind of scrutiny. She was right. 2 days later, Holloway sent a settlement offer. It was more reasonable than the original separation terms, but still tried to favor Brooke on the house and finances. Patricia countered with terms that reflected reality. Equitable split of actual marital assets, no house transfer, full disclosure of Sharon's investment in Klein Systems. They rejected it. We let them, because I wasn't in a hurry anymore. Time was on my side. Every day that passed, the Klein Systems situation got worse. The buyout deal was falling apart. Sharon's investment was losing value. Eventually, they'd have to settle. But there was still one battle left to fight. And it wasn't in a courtroom. It was in the boardroom where Victor Klein thought he was still in control. The following week felt like living in a surveillance state. The black car appeared outside my apartment twice more. Someone went through my trash. I found it scattered in the alley behind my building. My phone started doing strange things, calls dropping randomly, battery draining faster than normal, texts delayed. I wasn't paranoid. I was being followed, monitored, and harassed. I documented everything, photos, times, locations. I sent it all to Patricia and to Brennan Solutions, legal team. Then things escalated. On Wednesday afternoon, I received an official-looking letter at work. It came via courier, signature required. Inside was a cease and desist order, much more aggressive than the first one. This one threatened legal action for misappropriation of trade secrets, defamation, tortious interference with business relationships, and conspiracy to defraud. The language was vague enough to be terrifying and specific enough to sound credible. I took it straight to Cynthia. She read it once, then picked up her phone. "Get legal in here now." Our lead attorney arrived within minutes. He read the letter, snorted, and tossed it on the desk. "This is nonsense," he said. "Pure intimidation. You haven't misappropriated anything. You've performed due diligence using materials they provided. This is Victor Klein trying to scare you into silence." "It's working," I admitted. "Don't let it. Here's what we're going to do." He pulled out a notepad. "We're going to respond formally, point by point, refuting every allegation. Then we're going to file a counter motion for malicious prosecution and witness intimidation." "Will that make it worse? In the short term? Maybe. But Caleb, you can't back down now. If you fold, Victor wins. Not just this deal, but the precedent. He'll know he can bully anyone into silence." He was right, but knowing he was right didn't make it easier. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Victor's threats, Sharon's warnings, Brooke's desperate pleas. They all had the same message: back down or suffer. But I couldn't back down. Not because I was brave, because I'd learned something over the past few months. Truth is stubborn. Once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it, and I'd seen too much. The next morning, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line, just a message. "Mr. Ward, be careful. Victor Klein has connections you don't understand, people who owe him favors, people who solve problems quietly." This isn't a game. I forwarded it to Patricia immediately. She called me within minutes. "Caleb, I think we need to consider police protection." "For what? Anonymous emails?" "For a pattern of escalating threats, the car surveillance, the mail tampering, the legal harassment, and now explicit warnings about people who solve problems. That's a veiled threat of violence." "You really think Victor would?" "I think desperate people do desperate things, and Victor Klein is very desperate right now. His company is hemorrhaging value. His reputation is damaged. His buyout is collapsing. He's backed into a corner, and you're the one he blames." That afternoon, I filed a police report. The officer who took my statement looked skeptical until I showed him all the documentation, photos of the car, copies of the letters, the anonymous emails. "This is harassment," he said. "Maybe stalking. We can investigate, but these things take time." "How much time?" He shrugged. "Depends on what we find. Could be weeks." I didn't have weeks. The final buyout meeting was in 3 days. I spent those 3 days preparing, not just reviewing documents, but preparing mentally for whatever Victor might try. Patricia suggested I have someone with me at all times. I told her I couldn't live like that. "Then at least be careful," she said. "Don't go places alone at night. Vary your routine. Watch for anyone following you." I did all of that, and I felt like a paranoid fool doing it. But the car kept appearing, and the emails kept coming. On the morning of the final meeting, I woke up to my apartment door open. Not broken, just unlocked. I knew I'd locked it the night before. I'd checked twice. Nothing was missing. Nothing was damaged. But someone had been inside. They'd made sure I knew it. I called the police again. They came, filed a report, suggested I get better locks. I called Patricia. She said to document it and get to the meeting. They're trying to rattle you before the big moment. Don't let them. I drove to the office building where the meeting would be held. Checked the parking garage 3 times for anyone following me. Took the stairs instead of the elevator to avoid being cornered. When I walked into the conference room, Victor was already there. He smiled when he saw me. "Mr. Ward, I wasn't sure you'd show up. I have a job to do," I said. "Yes, you do." He leaned back in his chair, supremely confident. "Though I wonder how long you'll have that job once this meeting is over." Is that a threat? It's a prediction. The room filled up. Board members, attorneys, Cynthia and her team. The meeting was about to begin, and I had enough evidence to destroy Victor Klein's company completely. The only question was whether he'd try to destroy me first. The meeting started with Cynthia outlining the issues clearly and professionally. Based on due diligence findings, we've identified significant material risks that weren't disclosed in initial documentation. We're here today to determine whether those risks can be adequately addressed or whether this transaction should be terminated. Victor's lead attorney responded with smooth corporate language about misunderstandings and clarifications, but Cynthia cut through it. "Let's be specific. Mr. Ward, please present your updated findings." I opened my folder. Since our last meeting, I've identified several additional concerns beyond Atlas Corp's contract termination. I walked through them methodically. Financial irregularities in 3 separate quarters. Client contracts that existed on paper but showed no actual service delivery. Revenue recognition practices that bordered on fraud. Then I got to the part that made Victor's face go pale. Additionally, I've identified a conflict of interest that wasn't disclosed. Sharon Wells, mother-in-law of my estranged wife, is a minority investor in Klein Systems through a family trust. Her daughter and nephew, my wife Brooke and cousin Landon Mercer, are trust beneficiaries. Victor's attorney tried to interrupt. "That's not relevant to." "It becomes relevant," I continued, "when you consider that Landon Mercer was hired to replace me after my termination. A termination that occurred 2 weeks after Victor Klein personally humiliated me during a job interview. A termination approved by Victor's assistant. A termination that created a position specifically for someone connected to a family with financial interest in keeping Klein Systems' valuation high." The room went dead silent. Cynthia spoke carefully. "Mr. Klein, were you aware of this family connection when you approved Mr. Ward's termination?" Victor's face was stone. "I don't involve myself in routine HR decisions. Your assistant's signature is on the approval," I said. "That's not routine. My assistant handles many documents, including the internal job posting that specifically recommended Landon Mercer." Victor's jaw clenched. "Personnel decisions are made based on qualifications. Landon Mercer had 3 years of experience," I said. "I had 20. What qualifications justified replacing me with someone vastly less experienced?" One of the board members leaned forward. "Mr. Klein, this sounds like more than a personnel matter. This sounds like potential retaliation and nepotism." Victor stood up abruptly. "This is absurd. We're in the middle of a major acquisition and Mr. Ward is trying to turn it into a personal vendetta about his failed job interview." "It's not personal," I said calmly. "It's documented. I have the employment records, the timeline, the approval chains, the family connections, all of it. Patricia had coached me on this. Stay calm, stick to facts. Don't let emotion creep in." Victor's attorney tried another approach. "Even if there were personal connections, that doesn't impact the validity of this acquisition." "It does when those connections influence disclosure decisions," Cynthia said. "If Mr. Klein targeted Mr. Ward to protect investors who had personal relationships with his family, that's not just unethical, it's potentially securities fraud." "That's a wild leap," Victor's attorney protested. "Is it?" Cynthia pulled out a document. "Because we've reviewed Sharon Wells' investment timeline. She invested 18 months ago, right around the time Klein Systems started having operational problems. Her investment was contingent on certain performance metrics. Metrics that couldn't be met if qualified employees were exposing problems rather than hiding them." Victor finally lost his composure. "This is ridiculous. You're building a conspiracy theory out of coincidental timing. Then explain the coincidences, Cynthia said. Explain why Mr. Ward was terminated 2 weeks after you personally humiliated him. Explain why his replacement was connected to your investors. Explain why you hid the Atlas Corp risk from disclosure. Explain why you've sent cease and desist letters, surveillance teams, and threatening messages to an employee doing legitimate due diligence. Victor's face reddened. I have no knowledge of any surveillance or threats. Your attorney sent a letter threatening litigation for defamation and trade secret theft, Cynthia said. That's in writing, with your firm's letterhead. That's standard legal protection. Standard legal protection doesn't include following people home, tampering with their mail, breaking into their apartments. Victor's eyes widened slightly. I have no knowledge of any of that. But it happened, Cynthia said, and it happened to the one person who found the truth about your company. That's not coincidence, Mr. Klein. That's a pattern. One of the board members spoke up. I think we need to recess and consult with our legal team privately. Agreed, another board member said. They excused themselves. Victor's team stood to leave as well. Cynthia stopped them. Mr. Klein, I need to be clear about something. Even if your attorneys claim you had no knowledge of the intimidation tactics, the fact remains that your company has material undisclosed risks, questionable employment practices, and financial irregularities. Those issues alone are enough to either kill this deal or require significant structural changes. Victor's voice was cold. Are you walking away? We're evaluating whether there's any version of this deal that makes sense for our investors. After everything we've put into this? Everything you've put into this, Cynthia corrected, was based on incomplete disclosure. You don't get credit for effort when the foundation is dishonest. Victor stared at me. This is your doing. You destroyed this deal. I didn't destroy it, I said. I found what was already broken. Victor's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. What? His attorney asked. Victor showed him the phone. The attorney's expression changed immediately. Cynthia's phone buzzed too. Then mine. Then everyone's. We all looked at our screens. A press release had just gone out from Atlas Corp. Atlas Corp issues formal complaint against Klein Systems for breach of contract and fraudulent billing practices. Company pursuing legal action to recover $8 million in disputed charges. The room erupted in chaos. Board members demanding explanations. Attorneys conferring urgently. Victor's face cycling through rage, panic, and calculation. Cynthia looked at me. Did you know about this? No, I said honestly. I knew Atlas Corp terminated their contract. I didn't know they were filing a complaint. This changes everything, one of the board members said. If there are fraud allegations, we can't touch this company with a 10-foot pole. Victor tried to regain control. This is a misunderstanding, a billing dispute. It happens in every... $8 million isn't a billing dispute, Cynthia said. $8 million is a fraud allegation. The meeting dissolved after that. Board members left to consult lawyers. Victor and his team huddled in urgent whispers. I packed up my documents and prepared to leave. Victor stopped me at the door. You did this, he said quietly. You contacted Atlas Corp. You poisoned them against me. I've never spoken to anyone at Atlas Corp, I said truthfully. Maybe they just got tired of being lied to. This isn't over. Yes, I said. It is. I walked out of that building into bright afternoon sunlight, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe normally. The deal wasn't just damaged, it was dead, and Victor Klein's empire was crumbling in real time. Not because I'd destroyed it, because he built it on sand, and the tide finally came in. The next morning, Cynthia called an emergency meeting with the entire Brennan Solutions team. The Klein Systems acquisition is officially dead, she announced. Their legal team notified us an hour ago that they're withdrawing from negotiations. Some people looked disappointed. Most looked relieved. However, Cynthia continued, there's more to this story, and I need to be transparent with all of you about what we uncovered during due diligence. She walked through it all, the financial irregularities, the hidden risks, the Atlas Corp fraud allegations. And then she got to my part. Caleb Ward, our due diligence lead, identified these issues through exceptional thoroughness and persistence. But what many of you don't know is that Caleb had personal history with Victor Klein. History that could have compromised his objectivity, but didn't. She looked at me. Caleb, do you want to explain? I stood up, uncomfortable with the attention. Victor Klein fired me from my previous job, I said simply. Under questionable circumstances. When I learned Brennan was pursuing an acquisition of his company, I could have disclosed the conflict and recused myself. Instead, I chose to do the work with even more rigor precisely because I knew people might question my motives. Did Victor retaliate against you? Someone asked. He tried. Intimidation, threats, legal harassment, but I documented everything, and I stuck to facts, not emotions. Cynthia nodded. Which is exactly how due diligence should work. Caleb found problems that saved this firm from $100 million mistake, potentially more. After the meeting, my coworkers approached me one by one, some to congratulate me, some just curious about the drama. But one conversation stood out. A senior partner named Malcolm Ross pulled me aside. Caleb, I need to ask you something. Off the record. Okay, when you found those problems in Klein Systems, did you know how bad it would get for Victor? Did you know the deal would collapse? I suspected it might, and you proceeded anyway? Yes, because the problems were real. Hiding them would have hurt Brennan's solutions. Malcolm studied me. That took courage. Most people would have found a way to soften the findings, make the deal more palatable, collect their bonus and move on. That wouldn't have been honest. No, it wouldn't have been. He paused. We need more people like you, people who value truth over convenience. He walked away before I could respond. That afternoon, Patricia called with news. Brooks' attorney reached out, she said. They want to settle. Immediately. What are the terms? Equitable split of actual marital assets, no house transfer, clean break. They're dropping all claims of hidden assets and mental instability. Why the sudden change? Patricia laughed. Because Sharon Wells's investment in Klein Systems just became worthless. The company's stock price dropped 40% yesterday after the Atlas Core fraud allegations went public. Sharon's 18-month investment is underwater. She and Brooke can't afford a prolonged legal battle anymore. I felt something that might have been satisfaction if it wasn't so exhausted. Do we take the settlement? I asked. That's up to you. But Caleb, it's a fair deal. Better than fair, actually. If you go to trial, you might win more. But trials are expensive and draining. Is revenge worth that cost? I don't want revenge, I said. I just wanted to stop being a victim. Then take the settlement, close this chapter, move on. I thought about Brooke, about Sharon, about the months of manipulation and threats and fear. I'll take it, I said. The papers were signed within a week. The house sold quickly, market was good, and we split the proceeds exactly in half. Same with our remaining joint assets. It wasn't much, but it was fair. Brooke sent me one text after everything was finalized. I'm sorry it ended this way. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. But the story wasn't quite over yet. 2 weeks after the settlement, Cynthia called me into her office. I have news, she said. The board reviewed your work on the Klein Systems due diligence. They were impressed. Very impressed. Thank you. They want to offer you a promotion, Senior Director of Strategic Analysis, significant raise, leadership position. I blinked. Really? Really, you earned it, Caleb. You did work that saved this company a fortune and protected our reputation. That's worth rewarding. I'd be honored. Good, there's one more thing. She handed me a folder. We're being approached about another potential acquisition, bigger than Klein, more complex. The board wants you to lead the due diligence. I opened the folder and saw the company name. My heart skipped. It was one of Victor Klein's main competitors. A company that had been quietly watching the Klein Systems collapse and saw an opportunity. They heard about your work, Cynthia said. Word gets around in our industry. They specifically requested you as the lead analyst. Said they wanted someone with integrity who wouldn't sugarcoat problems. I closed the folder. When do we start? Next week. But Caleb, there's something you should know. What? Victor Klein is applying for a position there. Senior Vice President of Operations. He's trying to rebuild his career. I felt the universe's sense of humor land heavily. Will I have input on hiring decisions? I asked. If your due diligence finds concerns about candidates or leadership, yes, your input would be considered. I sat back in my chair and laughed. Actually laughed. Victor had tried to bury me. Now I might be the person evaluating whether he got hired at his next job, not because I'd maneuvered for it, because I'd done good work that people noticed. I'll take the job, I said, but I'll evaluate everything fairly, including Victor. If he's qualified, I'll say so. If he's not, I'll say that too. Cynthia smiled. That's exactly why they want you. I walked out of her office and stood in the hallway, looking out at the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows. 6 months ago, I'd been unemployed, divorced, and broken. I'd lost everything to people who thought I was replaceable. Now I was being promoted to lead major acquisitions. Companies were requesting me specifically. I had a reputation for integrity. I hadn't won by destroying my enemies. I'd won by refusing to be destroyed, and that felt like the truest kind of victory. 3 weeks later, I sat in another boardroom. Different building, different company, but the same glass table and leather chairs that seemed required for corporate meetings. The same nervous energy in the air before something important happened. The potential acquisition target was Meridian Tech Solutions, one of Klein Systems' direct competitors. They'd reached out to Brennan after watching Victor's company implode, sensing opportunity. Cynthia sat beside me. Malcolm Ross was there too, along with our legal team and financial advisors. The Meridian executives filed in first, professional, confident. They knew they had the upper hand. They were the ones with a solid company to sell. Then the door opened again. Victor Klein walked in. He was dressed impeccably as always, hair perfect, suit expensive. But something had changed. His confidence looked painted on instead of natural. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He scanned the room, shaking hands, making small talk. When his eyes found me, they stopped. For just a second, his expression cracked. Shock, recognition, rage. Then the corporate mask slid back into place. "Well," he said, walking over to shake my hand. "Mr. Ward, small world." "Mr. Klein," I said, keeping my voice professional. "I didn't know you'd joined Meridian." "Senior Vice President of Operations. Started 2 weeks ago." His grip was too firm, like he was trying to prove something. Funny how life works out. Funny, I agreed. We all sat down. The lead Meridian executive, a woman named Andrea Hoffman, opened the meeting. "Thank you all for coming. We're excited about the potential partnership with Brennan Solutions. We believe our operational efficiency and market position make us an ideal acquisition target." She walked through their financials, client base, and growth projections. Everything looked solid, maybe too solid, but I'd reserve judgment until I'd done the deep dive. Then Andrea gestured to Victor. "I'll let our VP of Operations speak to our operational excellence and systems integration capabilities." Victor stood up, confident again. He launched into a presentation about streamlined processes, cost savings, and synergies. It was polished, professional, impressive, if you didn't know what to look for. But I knew what to look for. Victor talked about optimized workforce allocation. I heard firing people to cut costs. He mentioned strategic client prioritization. I heard abandoning smaller clients for bigger contracts. He praised innovative revenue recognition strategies. I heard accounting tricks to make numbers look better than reality. I took notes quietly. When Victor finished, Andrea smiled. "As you can see, we've brought in top talent to strengthen our operations." Cynthia nodded politely. Then she turned to me. "Caleb, initial thoughts?" Everyone looked at me, including Victor. I opened my folder. The financial presentation looks strong. I'll need to verify the client retention numbers and revenue sources. Standard due diligence. "Of course," Andrea said. I looked at Victor. "I'm particularly interested in understanding the operational changes implemented over the past 2 weeks. Any major restructuring or personnel shifts should be documented." Victor's jaw tightened slightly. "We've made some efficiency improvements, nothing material. I'd like to review the specifics. Org charts before and after, any client communications about service changes, standard stuff." "Happy to provide that," Victor said. But his voice had an edge. The meeting continued for another hour. Questions and answers. Documents promised. Timelines discussed. Finally, Andrea wrapped up. "We'll provide full access to our systems and records. Caleb, you'll be our main contact for due diligence?" "Yes." "Excellent. Victor will coordinate with you on operational documentation." My eyes met Victor's. He smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. "Looking forward to working together," he said. "Likewise." After the Meridian team left, Cynthia pulled me aside. "That was awkward. she said, a bit. Can you do this? Work with Victor directly? Yes. Because I'm not doing it for revenge or to punish him. I'm doing it to evaluate whether this acquisition makes sense. And if you find problems, then I report them, same as always. Cynthia nodded. That's the right answer. But Caleb, be careful. Victor knows you're the one who destroyed his last deal. He's not going to make this easy. I know. That night I got an email from an unfamiliar address. Subject, confidential. I opened it carefully. Mr. Ward, I worked at Klein Systems until last month. I'm reaching out because I heard you're doing due diligence on Meridian Tech. You should know that Victor Klein left Klein Systems under pressure from the board. They gave him the option to resign or be terminated for cause. He chose resignation. The fraud investigation is ongoing. He's good at landing on his feet, but his playbook doesn't change. Be careful. A friend, I forwarded it to Cynthia immediately with a note. Can we verify this? Her response came within minutes. Already on it. Our attorneys are requesting Klein's employment separation agreement from Klein Systems as part of verification. I spent the next 2 weeks buried in Meridian's documents. Financial statements, client contracts, employment records. Everything looked clean, maybe suspiciously clean. Then I found something in the operational reports. Victor had been at Meridian for 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, 3 senior employees had resigned, all from the operations department, all without clear explanation in the records. I requested their exit interview documents. Meridian's HR director provided them. Each interview was carefully worded, professional, nothing alarming. But all 3 mentioned concerns about new leadership direction and disagreements about operational strategy. 3 senior people, 2 weeks, same vague complaints. That was a pattern. I dug deeper. Requested the email communications between Victor and these employees. Andrea Hoffman called me directly. Caleb, I need to ask why you're requesting internal email communications. That seems beyond standard financial due diligence. I'm evaluating operational stability, I said. High turnover in key positions is a risk factor. I need to understand why 3 experienced employees left immediately after new leadership arrived. People leave jobs. It happens. 3 people in 2 weeks isn't normal turnover. It suggests either the new leadership is toxic or those employees knew something that concerned them enough to leave. Silence on the line. I'll get you the emails, Andrea said finally. But Caleb, Victor has been nothing but professional since joining us. This feels like you're looking for problems that don't exist. I'm looking for the truth, I said. If there are no problems, the emails will show that. The emails arrived the next day. 300 pages of internal communications. I started reading. By page 50, I found it. An email thread between Victor and one of the departed employees, a woman named Holly Chen. She'd questioned some of Victor's proposed billing changes for a major client. Victor's response, your job is to implement strategy, not question it. If you're not comfortable with the direction, perhaps you should consider whether you're the right fit for this team. Holly's reply, I'm comfortable questioning practices that might expose the company to legal risk. If we bill for services not yet delivered, that's fraud. Victor's final response, you're being overly cautious. This is standard revenue acceleration. If you can't adapt, I'll find someone who can. Holly resigned 3 days later. I pulled the other 2 employees' exit threads. Similar patterns. Different issues, same approach. Victor pushing practices that felt questionable. Employees pushing back. Victor suggesting they leave if they weren't team players. I compiled everything into a report and brought it to Cynthia. She read it twice. This is bad. Yes. Victor's been at Meridian for 2 weeks and he's already pushing out qualified employees who question his judgment. Just like he did at Klein Systems. Cynthia closed the folder. We need to present this to Meridian's board. They need to know what they've hired. Will they listen? They hired us to do due diligence. If we find problems, they have to listen. Whether they act on it is their choice. The next day, we had a meeting with Andrea and Meridian's board chairman, a man named Paul Sterling. I presented my findings, the employee turnover, the email communications, the pattern of Victor pushing boundaries and eliminating dissent. Paul listened carefully. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. This is concerning, he said. But Victor came highly recommended. His track record, I interrupted gently. Includes building a company that's now under investigation for fraud. A company whose valuation collapsed after hidden problems came to light, and now, in 2 weeks at Meridian, he's replicated the same patterns. That's speculative. It's documented. The emails show him pressuring employees to implement questionable practices. The resignations show that experienced people would rather leave than follow his direction. Andrea spoke up. Victor has explained those resignations. He says those employees were resistant to necessary changes. Or, I said, they were resistant to practices that could expose Meridian to legal liability, like billing for services not yet delivered. Paul's eyes sharpened. What? I showed him Holly Chen's email thread. He read it slowly, his expression darkening. Victor proposed billing a client for services not yet completed? Paul asked. According to this email, yes. That would violate our accounting policies, which is why Holly pushed back, and why she resigned when Victor pressured her. Paul closed the folder. We need to talk to Victor. I recommend doing it with legal counsel present, Cynthia said. If he's implementing practices that violate company policy, that's a governance issue. The meeting adjourned. Paul asked us to return the next day for a follow-up session. That night, I got another anonymous email. You're doing the right thing. Victor destroys good companies by driving out good people. Don't let him do it again. A friend. The next day's meeting included Victor, along with Meridian's legal counsel and HR director. Paul opened by asking Victor directly about the billing practices. Victor was smooth. I was discussing revenue optimization strategies, standard practice in our industry. Holly Chen called it fraud, Paul said. Holly misunderstood the conversation. We were talking about accelerating billing timelines for services scheduled to be delivered, not billing for services we wouldn't deliver. That's not what the email says. Victor's face hardened. Then Holly misrepresented my position, which may explain why she decided to leave. I spoke up. 3 employees left in 2 weeks, all with similar concerns. That's not 3 misunderstandings, that's a pattern. Victor turned to look at me. His expression was cold. Mr. Ward seems to have a personal interest in damaging my reputation. Mr. Ward is doing his job, Cynthia said firmly, and his findings are based on documentation, not opinion. Documentation can be interpreted different ways, Victor said. Then explain your interpretation, Paul said. Why did 3 experienced employees resign within days of you suggesting they weren't team players? Victor didn't have a good answer. The meeting ended with Paul promising to review everything with his board. As we walked out, Victor stopped me in the hallway. You're destroying me, he said quietly. Again. No, I said. I'm just reporting what I find. You're destroying yourself. Because of one failed deal, one investigation, companies fail. Leaders move on. Leaders who drive out good employees and push questionable practices don't move on. They get exposed eventually. Victor stepped closer. You think you've won something, but Caleb, I've been in this business for 30 years. You're a mid-level analyst who got lucky once. That luck will run out. Probably, I said, but not today. I walked away, leaving him standing alone in that hallway. 2 days later, Meridian announced that Victor Klein had mutually agreed to part ways with the company. The acquisition moved forward without him, and I went back to work, knowing I'd done exactly what I was hired to do. Tell the truth, no matter who it exposed. The acquisition of Meridian Tech closed 4 months later. Clean, fair, profitable. I was promoted again. Director of Strategic Due Diligence, corner office, team of analysts reporting to me. I hired carefully, people who valued truth over politics, people who weren't afraid to find problems. My reputation grew. Other firms started reaching out. Headhunters called constantly. I stayed at Brennan Solutions. They'd believed in me when I had nothing. Loyalty matters. One afternoon, Malcolm Ross stopped by my office. Got a minute? He asked. Sure. He sat down looking uncomfortable. I need to tell you something. About Victor Klein. My stomach tightened. What about him? He's filing a lawsuit against you, specifically, and Brennan Solutions generally. Claims you defamed him, tortiously interfered with his career, and conspired to destroy his professional reputation. I felt cold. Can he do that? He can file. Whether he can win is different. Our lawyers say it's baseless. You did legitimate due diligence work and reported factual findings. That's protected activity. So why file? Harassment, intimidation, making your life difficult enough that you'll agree to some kind of settlement just to make it stop. That's his pattern, I said. When he can't win legitimately, he tries to crush people with legal costs and stress. Exactly. Which is why Brennan Solutions is covering all legal fees, and we're countersuing for malicious prosecution. Will that make it worse? Maybe. But Caleb, you can't let bullies win just because they're loud. Sometimes you have to fight back harder. The lawsuit dragged on for 8 months. Depositions, document production, motions, counter-motions. Victor's attorneys tried every angle. They claimed I had a personal vendetta, that I'd manipulated evidence, that I'd coordinated with Brooke to damage Victor's reputation. None of it stuck, because all I'd done was document what I found and report it accurately. Finally, the judge ruled. Victor's claims were dismissed with prejudice. Brennan's countersuit moved forward. Victor settled for an undisclosed amount rather than go to trial. His attorneys issued a statement saying he regretted the misunderstanding and wished all parties well. Translation, he lost, and he was trying to save face. That same week, I got a call from Patricia. Caleb, I have news about Brooke and Sharon. What kind of news? Sharon's investment in Klein Systems is completely worthless. The company declared bankruptcy last month. She's lost everything she put in, over $1 million. Jesus. Brooke is apparently working retail now. She had to sell her condo. She's living with Sharon in a rental apartment. I felt something complicated. Not satisfaction exactly. Not pity either. Just closure. Thanks for telling me, I said. There's more. Landon Mercer, the cousin who replaced you, was terminated from Klein Systems 3 months ago. Turns out he was completely unqualified and couldn't handle the work. He's filing for unemployment. I sat with that information. All these people who'd tried to destroy me had destroyed themselves instead. Not because I'd actively hurt them. Just because I'd refused to help them build houses on sand. How do you feel? Patricia asked. Tired, I said honestly, and relieved. You should feel proud. You fought back legally, ethically, and you won. I just did my job. Exactly. Which is harder than it sounds when everyone is pressuring you to do anything else. That night, I went to a bar. Not to celebrate. Just to sit alone with a beer and think about how far I'd come. A year ago, I'd been mocked in a conference room, holding a resume on cheap paper, feeling like the smallest person in the world. Now I was evaluating major acquisitions, leading teams, building a reputation for integrity. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired, but good tired. The kind that comes from working hard and doing things right. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Mr. Ward, this is Holly Chen. I heard what you did at Meridian. Thank you for having the courage to tell the truth about Victor. You saved that company from making a huge mistake. If you ever need a reference or testimony about Victor's patterns, I'm available. Holly, I saved the message, didn't reply, just saved it. Because sometimes knowing you helped someone is enough. 3 months later, I was sitting in my office when my assistant buzzed me. Caleb, there's someone here to see you, says it's personal. Name's Evelyn Price. Evelyn, my old mentor, the woman who'd helped me when I had nothing. I walked to the lobby. She was standing there, dressed casually, smiling. Evelyn, I said, what brings you here? I'm consulting for a company that's considering bringing Brennan Solutions on board. I saw your name on the team roster. Wanted to say hi. We walked to a nearby coffee shop. I heard about everything, she said after we'd sat down. Victor, the lawsuit, Meridian, you've had quite a year, you could say that. I also heard you handled it with more grace than most people could manage. I just kept doing my job. That's what I told the company I'm consulting for. I said if they want someone who won't sugarcoat problems, someone who values truth over convenience, you're the person to lead their due diligence. What company? She smiled. You'll find out soon enough. But Caleb, I'm proud of you. You could have become bitter. Instead, you became better. I don't know about better, just stubborn. Stubborn works. We talked for an hour. About work. About life. About how sometimes the worst things that happen to us force us to become stronger than we knew we could be. When we parted, Evelyn hugged me. Keep being stubborn, she said. The world needs more people who won't quit just because things get hard. I walked back to my office, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Genuine pride. Not in defeating anyone. In surviving. in maintaining integrity when it would have been easier to compromise. That afternoon, Cynthia called me into her office. "We got a call," she said, "from the board of a major tech company. They're looking for someone to lead due diligence on a complicated merger. Specifically, they asked for you by name." "Why me?" "Because your reputation is spreading. People know you find problems other analysts miss. They know you won't compromise or sugarcoat. They know they can trust you." "What's the company?" She slid a folder across her desk. I opened it and saw the name. My breath caught. It was a company 3 times the size of anything I'd worked on before. $1,500 million deal. International operations. Massive complexity. "This is huge," I said. "It is. And they want you. Not Brennan Solutions generally. You specifically. When do they need an answer?" "By Friday." I looked at the folder, at the company name, at the challenge it represented. And I thought about standing in that conference room a year ago with my cheap resume, being mocked by a man who thought I was nothing. "I'll do it," I said. Cynthia smiled. "I knew you would." That night, I went home to my apartment, larger now, nicer, in a better neighborhood, and sat on my balcony looking at the city lights. I thought about Brooke, about Sharon, about Victor, about all the people who'd tried to tell me I was replaceable, insignificant, wrong. And I thought about the fact that I'd proven them all wrong, not by destroying them, but by simply refusing to be destroyed. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so solid, so honest, so valuable that the people who tried to ruin you become irrelevant. They didn't disappear from the world. They just disappeared from mattering. And I was okay with that. More than okay. I was free. Please continue to chapter 2.